What's up, you heathens and demons, you sinners and saints, you beautiful, blasphemous people? Welcome back to A Raging Atheist. We're gonna have some fun tonight. It might be the last night me and Ali might have to have fun together and kind of laugh at myself a little bit. Travis is in the chat. He's here. Hopefully, he'll be in it for the long haul. We're going to try to be really fair with him. And this will be my first time looking at this debate performance. Before we get into that, we do have a couple things to address, but first I'm gonna let Ellie say what's up. What's up, Ellie?
Hey guys, so as you guys can hear, I'm all kinds of stuffy. I'm also a grump, which is why I'm American as fuck at the moment. So I officially was diagnosed positive with COVID last night. The results came in. Big fucking shock, I know. My husband's had it for over 10 days. He coughed in my face while I was taking care of him. I've been cracking jokes about it. I've officially got it. My symptoms actually look a lot different than his do. So if y'all follow me on Twitter, it's at Aliakai, spelled exactly like my name is on screen there. I actually posted a timeline of his symptoms, and later today I'm going to be starting a thread with a timeline of mine because our case is actually, even though we have exactly the same strain, like I caught it from him, he coughed in my fucking face. We have different symptoms. Like I've got a wet cough, my lungs are filling with fluid already. Like, oh, there's the alarm. I don't have a fever. He got his within a couple of days. I've had a dry cough and a sore throat. It's now turning into a wet cough. I'm coughing up this nasty shit. So I don't know how well I'm going to feel tomorrow. I'm hoping that we'll still be able to have Sigard on. I'm starting to worry, like yesterday, not so much, but I'm starting to worry that I'm not going to make it all the way to the end of the week for our interview with Nacha, at the very least, like feeling well enough to be on stream. So either today or tomorrow might be the last stream I have with Knock for at least the next couple of weeks. I'm definitely not allowed to leave the house.
Sorry, I'm laughing at Jeremy's last joke. Yeah, Jeremy, that was pretty good.
So I wanted to keep you guys updated on that. The good news is Steve is actually on the mend, my husband. He's feeling a lot better. He said that he could breathe half his lungs yesterday. He's up to 2/3 today. He's actually sitting up, being on his computer. He hasn't left his bed in 10 days, and his fever broke last night. So we're not completely out of the woods yet. His doctor said that people can still have SARS, like sudden acute respiratory syndrome, like where your lungs collapse and shit. That can still happen when it looks like someone's on the mend, but he is physically feeling a lot better. It looks like he's actually fighting it. And we got some good news. So anybody who actually contracts it, who tests positive, check your local universities, because we go through the local university for our health stuff. Like they have a number of satellite things out here. Turns out people who survive it and finish their virus shedding can donate plasma, and they are taking plasma right now from people who survived and no longer have the virus in their system so that they can give the antibodies to people in the hospital. So like he and I might actually be able to do some good with our ordeal, assuming that we both make it out of this fine, which, again, he looks like he's coming out the other end fine. We just need to see if I do. I've been hospitalized for pneumonia in the past. I'm not going to pretend that that's not a possibility, but I'm not going to fearmonger either. I gave my partners the passwords to all of my accounts, so people who are worried, if I end up in the hospital and I'm not able to tell people, they're going to tell people. And they have a list of names, and Knox on that list, Callan's on that list, Shay's on that list. There's a list of names that are going to find out. And I also told them to put something on my Twitter so that those of you that are following me on there can find out if I end up in the hospital. So you guys will find out. Knock will let you know if nobody else does. But you guys I'm not going to disappear on you without any fucking words. It's just that I might have to drop off of streaming for a bit while I'm sick.
Yeah, I've been kind of waiting, like, who's the first person that I'm going to know personally to get COVID-19. Didn't want that to be my co-host. So, yeah, we've been dealing with this kind of behind the scenes, out in the open, somewhat. But yeah, we'll keep you guys posted. You'll know how this turns out. And of course, we're hoping the best. This is some serious shit, so we're hoping Ellie comes out of the other end just fine.
Yeah, and like I said, you know, I there's a chance that I will be hospitalized again. I get pneumonia under normal circumstances, but I don't think that if I do get hospitalized, I won't be able to fight it off. It's not that my immune system sucks, it's that my lungs suck. Like my parents were dumb with the way that they smoked. I've had asthma since I was a really young kid. Like my care team knows about it, and I'm under monitoring. And I actually, a pharmacist did us a solid and even made sure that we could get some Dayquil when my meds get picked up tomorrow. So, like, there are people in the community who give a shit about us. Like, she remembered me over the phone because of my weird ass accent. And like she did us a solid, and there's Dayquil and shit waiting for me when my friend goes to pick up my thyroid meds tomorrow. So, like, we're doing good. Like, right now, I'm fine. And I want you guys to know that I'm sick and I'm gonna get sicker. But right now,
Yeah.
you know, I just want to let you guys know that if I drop off the face of the planet for a bit and I'm only texting and stuff on Discord, it's just because my lungs are getting bad. That's it.
Yeah, as of right now, the Sygart discussion is still on. But again, if Ali wakes up tomorrow and it's considerably worse, then we will reschedule that discussion for a later date. And before we get into the review of the debate tonight, one little quick aside. I'm not trying to talk about the drama. I'm done dealing with the drama. But there is an important note. So all of all of the trolling from a certain faction has led to your comments not showing up, to the point that I'm not even getting legitimate comments showing up from like people like the Holy Spackle, whom I respect, might have a legitimate criticism, and yet it's not showing up in the YouTube chat because YouTube is automatically taking those down because of all of your really, really terrible trolling. I mean, it's fucking awful, the shit you're doing. It's really bad. It's really childish. It's really disgusting. And because of that, YouTube is just taking them down. I haven't done it. I didn't even know the Holy Spackle had commented until Ali told me that, hey, you know, Holy Spackle commented. She saw it in my emails because Ali actually reads the emails. I don't. And then I went to look on the YouTube page and the comment's not there. So you're trolling kind of fucked yourselves. Maybe be more respectful.
Well, and
When you're
even
trying to
with
come at supposed bigots, don't be fucking bigoted. But that
well,
being
and
said, yeah, go
you
ahead,
know,
Ali.
the one other thing is the comment thread that you've been responding to also, that like you can see on our comments page in the YouTube studio, is also not showing up down there. So I don't know what the fuck happened. I don't know if somebody reported them or if YouTube's algorithm was just like, there's too much activity and it's not normal, like let put a stop to every. I don't fucking know. But I do know that we did get the Holy Spackles comment. It came through in the email, but it's not showing up on the bottom. And I made note of that to Knock, that I don't know what the fuck's going on, and neither does he. So screw if we know anything. Like, you know, it's a play it by ear and figure out what the fuck's going on, guys. But like, you guys might have accidentally screwed yourselves, and there's nothing we can do to help you because we were trying to just check the comments and we can't even fucking see them.
Yeah,
Like,
I
they're
don't
not
even
showing up
see
for
them.
us either, except for in our
So-
emails. So like, we only know they exist because YouTube does the notification email thing for creators. And like, I don't fucking know what to tell you. I don't. All right,
Yeah.
so now we can get into the meat of this, like the actual, let's break down the debate. This will be my first time seeing parts of it. I was in training during part of it because it got rescheduled to during my training time. So I got to see about half of it. But I got to see it kind of in and out in between when I could pay attention to training versus like when we were doing exercises or something and I finished early and I was just like, oh, what's Knock doing? Oh, Knock is Knock's in some trouble, or oh look, Knock kind of recovered. I don't fucking know. So I haven't seen this whole thing from start to finish. We're gonna go through the whole thing. It's gonna be a long stream. You're in it for the long haul if you're hanging with us. We appreciate everybody who does. But we're going through the whole thing because Knock and I might not have another chance to hang for who knows how long after Sygart tomorrow. And Knock isn't even going to be on the stream until the end tomorrow. It's just going to be Sygart and I having a conversation because I was the one who invited him.
Yeah, I might pop in at the very end. So, yeah, I haven't watched this back yet. And I wish I might have, or I wish I would have looked more into Travis's arguments. Thank you, Travis, for being here. Hopefully you won't get too offended by the banner. I don't plan on being like too awfully hard on you. I plan on being pretty hard on myself. So, I haven't really researched the holographic principle yet, or his argument for why God exists. But I am interested in watching this back and having fun with myself tonight. And I think it should be fun. I really do. I think this is going to be fun and a good reprieve from the bullshit drama that I just can't ignore because I am who I am.
Well, and we're going to be mostly looking at your performance more than anything. We might examine some of the arguments because, you know me, I'm a physics geek. I'm also a paleontology geek, so I know a lot of this shit front to back. I got a buddy in astrophysics who I'm going to be taking notes, and I'm going to be bringing some questions to him when I come out the other side of this, so we might get some comments from him later on.
Oh, yeah, and don't forget, me and Travis have round 2 as well, so I get to study his arguments and come up with rebuttals, and then we're going to go back at it. So this isn't over yet. It's not.
So yeah, like this is just us kind of chilling, being friends for a bit and getting to hang out because like I said, we promised we were going to do this. I told Knock that I was going to rip his ass open and tell him exactly how he fucked up, and that's what we're going to do.
Oh yeah, I told her no holds barred. Any criticisms? I might be a little outlandish with the criticisms of myself just because I want to have fun with this. I do want to take it somewhat seriously and break it down and give you my true thoughts on it, but I'm going to have fun with myself during the stream. So we're just going to start it. I got through the technical difficulties. I got through all of that. And it's right where Travis starts with his opening statement.
All right.
All right. Oh.
So with that being said, we're going to start with Travis. We'll give him 5 minutes or so. They're not strict on that, so just give us an opening statement, and then we'll kick it over to Naka.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Converse, and thanks, Raging, for being here. I appreciate it. So just to kind of basically lay out my position, I'm a theistic evolutionist, and I reject basically like intelligent design and so forth. I would say that God works through the natural laws of physics, but not within them.
All right, so the echo, I think, happens at first. I don't think it happens through the whole stream. Of course, there was technical difficulties. Converse Contender dealt with it. I don't believe that it happens through the whole stream. It is my first time watching it through, so if it does, then that's just something that happened in the stream.
That said, though, I do want to make a quick address to that point. The principle of intelligent design was simply that it could not have arisen by chance and was created by an intelligent entity. Like, I know that I'm going to extend the principle of charity here and state that, you know, and Travis, you're here, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, that he was stating that he doesn't believe in young earth creationism specifically when he referred to intelligent design here. But I would argue that what I heard later on, he was arguing for intelligent design to some extent because he still argued for the presence of a God that worked through physics. He just didn't argue that God created the universe like, you know, a couple thousand years ago.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of what threw me off of my opening statement from the get, because my opening statement was designed to tear apart his intelligent design argument. And it did throw me off because he's pretty much trying to say that he's not arguing from intelligent design. He was, but he just really mixed it up. Now, it's my fault for not actually realizing that he used this argument before. I fully recognize that. I didn't see it. I think I pointed it out in the after show, how much it threw me off, but we'll talk about that as we go through it. But yeah, we'll continue.
So with that being said, I'm going to be defending Christian idealism. So in the hunt to bridge quantum mechanics with general relativity, the holographic principle is widely regarded as an essential feature of a successful theory of everything.
Right there, everything fucking went what the fuck for me. Right there, Allie. Because, Allie, you were familiar with how I prepared and what I was preparing for. Mm-hmm. This wasn't what I was preparing for right there. Right there, it showed me, hey, I just heard something I haven't heard before. What the fuck?
Well, and I do want to give Travis some credit here because I did actually go back and watch his older debate with T-Jump, and it's clear that you have opened your mind up and allowed a lot of your ideas to evolve, like, since that prior debate. So kudos to you, Travis, for having that open mind. Like, since you are in my live chat, I want to talk to you directly. Like, that level of intellectual honesty is becoming of a person. Like, you know, from one theist to another, like, I'm actually proud of you for the fact that you've been willing to consider other angles of science.
Oh, yeah.
Like, good on you.
Because my whole argument was designed around string theory and multiverse, and he's like fully adopting it now. And I'm like, fuck. I mean, that's just true honesty. That's what I was thinking at that moment. I'm like, what is this? Fuck.
Well, yeah, and like in the side chat, Travis is talking about contingency. Travis, you're not in the debate at the moment. Like, I'm just saying to you, like, as somebody who was not present there to tell you that, kudos to you for being intellectually honest and being willing to evolve your arguments with your education. Like, that's something that a lot of apologists don't do.
I do understand that you want to maintain that it's not an argument from design. We'll have fun with that in our next conversation, Travis.
The holographic principle states that gravity in a three-dimensional volume can be described by quantum mechanics on a two-dimensional surface surrounding the volume. In particular, the three dimensions of the volume should emerge from the two dimensions of the surface. Now, physicists believe that quantum entanglement is the key to this mechanism. A collaboration of physicists and a mathematician from the University of Tokyo and Caltech have made significant steps toward unifying general relativity and quantum mechanics by explaining how space-time emerges from quantum entanglement from a more fundamental reality. Now, an easy way to look at this is like you have two particles that once they interact, what happens to one will simultaneously happen to the other despite any distance between them, showing that the information is more fundamental than the space. And a UK, Canadian, and Italian study has provided what researchers believe is the first observational evidence that our universe could be a complex hologram.
All right, as my computer goes off for some reason, I don't even have anything open for that to happen, but it does. Maybe that was on the actual debate. I'm not sure. Yeah, I didn't understand any of that.
I mean, effectively what it is it's a explanation of the way that black holes effectively function, and how that can interact with what we understand of quantum mechanics.
Yeah, well, I understood the quantum mechanics part of it because I had been actually studying quantum mechanics for like days. But it just, it for me in the moment, it just became like just this jumble of words that didn't really make much sense. And I was still thinking about this holographic thing that he was talking about. And I think that the chat was blowing up with that whole holographic argument as well. And so, yeah, it really threw me off. So like this, I even told Ali, like, not very, with a lot of, I was being very naive. I was like, I don't think he'll change up his arguments because nobody ever changes up their arguments. I've dealt with a lot of these people. They never change up their arguments. So I feel pretty safe to assume that his opening argument will be similar to the one that I seen. Oh, how wrong I was.
Well, yeah, and effectively the idea is that, like I can actually kind of read something off if you want a better explanation that I can give you just off the cuff, but the too long didn't read of what the holographic principle states is that effectively information is encoded in every inch of the universe. And within a black hole itself, it appears that information is encoded effectively on like a 2D surface because of the density of the matter there.
Yeah, I have looked into it just a little bit, but I've been dealing with just this fucking stupid ass drama lately that I haven't had a chance to really look into it like I wanted to at the point of actually reviewing the debate, which we said we was going to do like a while ago, like a few days ago at least. So yeah, I've been dealing with shit and haven't had time to really look at his arguments. I am very fascinated by this whole holographic principle and want to learn in detail what it is so I can really dissect it and then figure out how I'm going to argue against Travis about it.
Well, and the basic definition that I could give you, the most dumbed down version of it effectively is the holographic principle states that quantum mechanics shows that we can describe that every single area of space, whether it's a void or not, can be characterized by the information present in that space. So in order to describe any particular area of space, all you need to do is describe the information present there. And it was named the holographic principle after the way that, say, a 3D, a hologram can project 3D information onto a 2D area. That's effectively what the holographic principle is.
All right, so is it a fucking holograph or is it real? I mean, that's like, fuck, man.
The answer is
it's weird. I can't wait to think about it.
The answer is it's all theoretical math, so we don't know. which is the honest intellect. That's the intellectually honest version of that answer, is we don't know. What we do know, and this is where physics get fascinating, is that, for example, like, you know, and this is something you probably already know, but really think about this. Like, you're touching your mouse right now, right? Or, you know, you're touching your weed or whatever the fuck, but you're not actually touching it. But you're not actually touching it, right? What's happening is the electrons in the atoms that make up your cells are being repelled by the electrons in the atoms that make up whatever it is you think you're touching. And then electrical signals are being sent down through your hand through more electrical reactions that are then going off in your brain, and you're getting the sensation of touching something. But the actual physical contact has not occurred between those two atoms. Atoms are mostly empty space. So even in that regard, like, what we experience as reality, like through our limited perception, is not actually what reality is at its fundamental level. Like, we can't even fully understand all of the complex interactions that go into, say, tasting your food, let alone anything else.
All right, so is it along the lines, like, you know, our minds creates the universe around us?
Well, the holographic
Jim
principle
Carrey
is
type shit, you know, like, we don't really exist, that it's all a figment of our imagination.
Well,
and our
mean,
minds
like,
create the universe.
Well, I mean, not so much that. I mean, your mind creates your experience of the universe. Like, we've talked about how color isn't real before on this channel. No, like, the point that I was trying to make with that, like, the, you know, the electrons.
Yeah, I just need to really
being
research the principle, I think.
Well, the point that I was trying to make when I was talking about the electrons in your fingertips being repelled by the electrons on the surface of something else, and that being what your sensation of touch is that what you directly experience does not correspond necessarily to physical reality itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and what Travis is saying in the chat right now, like me totally too. Like, when I research for these debates, I'm going based off of the research of experts. I am definitely not a physicist, although I am fascinated with the universe and how it works and all these different theories. And I've been fascinated for a very long time with this. I did feel fairly confident in accepting the debate, knowing that I would need to do a lot of research. I just didn't happen to research the one particular argument that he was going to come with on that night. So it threw me for a loop right from the get.
Well, and the other side of the holographic principle is that, you know, it's possible, we don't know and we have no way to confirm, but it's possible that because of the fact that a two-dimensional surface can contain all the information one needs to experience it as 3D. I have to take that phone call. I warned at the beginning of the stream the CDC might call me. I don't know this number, so I will be right back.
Well, all right, so that means we're continuing the video. Let's go.
Astrophysicists investigating irregularities in the cosmic microwave background have found that there is substantial evidence supporting a holographic explanation of the universe. In fact, as much as there is, if not more, than the traditional explanation of these irregularities using the theory of cosmic inflation. Therefore, based on this, as well as studies in quantum cognition and quantum decision theory, which state that information processing in entangled states is the product of mind, a deduction can be made. Information process.
All right, so Allie's not here to speak to that. She has spoken to that before. We're going to be really looking into what Travis just said, because we do not think that it leads to what he says it leads to. We think it's for something else entirely. But she is on a phone call and she's not going to speak to it directly right now. Unfortunate timing there. You know, if there's a God, he probably would hate me. So, but yeah, so this threw me off right off the get because I wasn't prepared for this argument. And I did agree to rebutting this argument in our next conversation. But in conversation number 3, me and Travis really needs to have a conversation about how this could possibly be the Christian God. Like, we have to have that conversation, because if you believe in the Christian God, that the Bible talks about, then that cannot fit this argument. It just cannot. It just cannot. So in the second conversation, I'm gonna be researching this, and we will really delve into holographic principle and the shit he just laid out there that I'm not going to try to recite word for word. Allie is familiar with that. She has a physicist friend that really rebutted what he just said as not being right. But she's not here to speak to that. But I want to have that conversation. I really want to understand how this interpretation.
guys.
All right,
I'm
so
back.
now you're back. So all right, let's play it back for you, Allie. Let's play it back.
Alrighty, sorry about that. The person calling was the pharmacy. They were letting me know that they'd put some stuff aside for me. So
All right, and of course they called right when they played the part that Travis gives his explanation for why it must be a mind. So you have offered some insight into this. Hopefully, I went back far enough. Let's play it back.
Now, an easy way to look at this is like you have two particles that once they interact, what happens to one will simultaneously happen to the other despite any distance between them, showing that the information is more fundamental than the space. And a UK, Canadian, and Italian study has provided what researchers believe is the first observational evidence that our universe could be a complex hologram. Astrophysicists investigated irregularities in the cosmic microwave.
I went back way too far, and obviously that whole Facebook thing was on Modern Day Debates part. Let's continue.
Background, I found that there is substantial evidence supporting a holographic explanation of the universe. In fact, as much as there is, if not more, than the traditional explanation of these irregularities using the theory of cosmic inflation. Therefore, based on this, as well as studies in quantum cognition and quantum decision theory, which state that information processing in entangled states is the product of mind, a deduction can be made. Information processing in entangled states is the product of mind. The universe emerges from information processing in an entangled state. Therefore, the universe is the product of mind, and this mind is who we call God.
All right. So that's his explanation for how physics leads to God.
well, the problem is that if you read a number of the papers on quantum entanglement and quantum information processing, like many of them necessarily state that it doesn't have to be the product of a mind. Like, this is where I don't understand where you're jumping from. It must, from quantum information processing to it must be a product of a mind. If anything, quantum information processing, from what I have read and from what my friend who's got a background in physics has said to me, the quantum information processing has more to do, a lot of it, with the way that, there's gaps in the way that psychological models explain human mind functioning. It doesn't necessarily lead, it's a logical leap to go from information is processed on a quantum level to there must be a mind. I don't see where you made that link here. And I remember later on in the debate, and I guess we're going to go through the whole thing, so I'm not going to make too many statements because, again, I didn't watch the whole thing. I have paid attention, so I'm not going to make too many comments, but I don't remember at any point the actual logical leap being crossed to where you presented evidence that it must be a mind, or even that it most likely was. Quantum information processing is actually an explanation for how this stuff can function without the direct, the direct input of a mind.
Now, and we will be, I will be really looking into the argument before I step into the debate room with Travis again, really breaking down the physics of it. And I know people in the chat were demanding that I ask an equation for God out of this, out of what he's proposing right here. So yeah. I mean, we're gonna really look at that and see if that reasoning is sound, and we'll have plenty of rebuttals in round two, but we'll continue.
With that, I'll go ahead and throw it over to Rage.
All right, cool. Thanks for that, Raging Atheist.
All right, so real quick before we continue. So that was the end of his opening statement. Way shorter than I expected. Didn't say anything that I expected him to say. So kudos to Travis for that. Again, if you've just come to an expansion of the mind and have accepted a greater possibility, kudos to you. If it is a debate tactic, though, to switch up your arguments and have different arguments depending on different situations, well, then I would take issue with that. And I hope that that's not the case. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. But I think here in my opening statement, you're going to clearly hear, I'm fucking confused at this point. It wasn't the argument that I was expecting to have. So we'll continue.
Why don't you give your 5 minutes or so? I mean, take your time. I mean, just get out what you need to say, and then we'll open it up to the open discussion.
I'm not really sure what Travis just said. So are you maintaining that the universe is a hologram and that God is running the hologram? Is that you is so what's your argument here? Is it that God is a designer?
No.
All right, so right there, and Allie knows this because she helped me prep and she listened to all of my opening statement. She listened to my strategy for open conversation.
Yeah,
Right
threw it
there,
the
I just
fuck out
threw
the
everything
window.
out the fucking window, did I not?
Yeah, you threw it the fuck out the window. And like the second I heard that, because this was part that I did hear, I was like, what the fuck are you doing, Knock? Like, what?
Yeah, I literally was looking at my opening statement, trying to figure out what the fuck his argument was. And I'm like, because my opening statement was designed not to deal with the science, it was designed to deal with philosophy and the philosophical gaps in his argument. But he threw off his argument, and it wasn't the argument that I was prepared for. So I wasn't quite sure. I suspected that my opening statement still applied, but I wasn't quite sure of it. So right now, here I am trying to feel him out and figure out what the fuck he just said.
Well, and again, I want to reiterate that everything that I have read on quantum cognition is like they specifically talk about human decision making and human minds. Like, I have not seen anything that suggests any sort of universal mind or any sort of God mind. So again, like,
yeah, I would have just
that
had to say
assumption
he's saying
to
it
be
comes from
made.
peer review. I mean, if there was peer review that proved that there was some mind behind the universe, then this wouldn't even be a discussion right now. Again, I'm gonna have to look into this. I just don't believe you. I think you're leaping to conclusions that aren't there.
Yeah, like quantum decision and, you know, cognition theories are psychology. They're a mix of physics and psychology. They are not, as far as I can tell, everything that I have read, including stuff like when I asked my friend who is into, you know, who has a background in physics to look over it, his response was, "What the hell is he on about? That's not a proof for God. That's, you know, which it explains some of the irrationalities in human psychology." So again, I would ask at this point, I would have read your original opening statement, because that actually would have still applied, and asked him where he leapt, not just saying over and over it's peer reviewed. Where do you leap here from these quantum decision making models that help explain human behavior to God? Or where is your, you know, where are you finding God here? Because very clearly he makes a statement that he links these things, but he doesn't say how.
Yeah, and my fallback position was, how do you get God out of that? I just, as my daughter is making a hellified racket in the background, I just tossed out all of my philosophical reasonings for the inadequacies of his teleological argument. When they still applied, I was just totally lost because it wasn't what I was expecting. No excuses. I should have expected it because, this wasn't the first time he put it out there. I just hadn't seen it.
Yeah, and that was my biggest criticism of you. Now we're going to go back to you, because I wanted to address that section of the argument because it's something we've talked about. But coming back to you, you let yourself get thrown off base by hearing something new and exciting, and you let yourself get fucking curious. And yeah, great. Explore something, you know, explore a new subject. Like, you probably shouldn't have started reading up on it right then and there, because again, the problem was not the science. The problem is not the science here. You know, you can sit here and say this complex fucking viral structure that just evolved from COVID-19 is somehow evidence for God. And yeah, you don't have to understand the complex fucking COVID virus structure that is currently attaching to my lungs to understand that you're going from a logical leap from this thing just happened to somebody must have designed it, right? Like, when you're arguing with a conspiracy theorist, you're not going to fight them on the science. You're going to argue with them on, you know, where their reasoning is. And that's what you should have done here. The reasoning is the reasoning is the debate, not the science.
Yeah, I put on Twitter later that night after the debate, like, lessons learned. Don't look up the shit your opponent is talking about while you're debating. Because I literally was. I was like trying to catch the fuck up. And then that's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. You got to go with the arguments you have prepared no matter what. And I allowed him to throw me off. So right there, we're confused. We're confused. Let's continue.
What I'm saying is basically the studies in quantum gravity show that our universe is an emergent feature of information processing, and think of it like 2D information projects the 3D holographic universe.
Okay, so what does God have to do with it?
Based on studies in quantum cognition and quantum decision theory, which state that information processing in entangled states are the product of mind and mental thought, and the universe emerges from quantum entanglement. Therefore, the universe is the product of mind. It has the same characteristics. It emerges from the same characteristics that we study of mind.
All right, so right there, he's saying that he has proof that everything comes from a mind. Right here in the side chat, he's saying, I have peer-reviewed papers that show the correlation of quantum cognition and emergent space-time.
Okay, but that, again, quantum cognition is not the same thing as a mind directed this. Like, I think that this is where, like, you know...
He's making a huge leap of faith here, right? Like, he is making a huge... I mean, this is just a misrepresentation of the physics.
Potentially.
Yeah, I mean, we have to look into it, but there's... I mean, as I said, like, this would be ground fucking breaking. Like, if some physicist proved some mind behind the universe... We'd all know that by now.
Yeah, and on top of it, peer-reviewed paper doesn't magically make it fact, first off. Second, just because there are theoretical models that show that something is possible does not mean that it is true. And third, in terms of quantum cognition...
It's totally becoming about him, and I really wanted to rag on myself. I'm sorry, I'm just so reactionary.
Well, and I'm just saying, and third, again, we're still making a huge logical leap here. Like, that is still a gigantic logical leap. And I'm ragging on you here because regardless of the evidence that is claiming to be presented, the point still here is, how do you get to God? And you should have been asking that question. You did hear, you know, how do you get God out of that? And I'm waiting to hear an answer.
Oh, I asked repeatedly.
The way that you also delivered that was extremely, like, you sounded like you were thrown off right there.
Oh, yeah, I was
presentation
deflecting.
There, you were deflecting, and it was obvious to the audience. Like, you were thrown the fuck off. You were way off guard.
Oh yeah, I was completely thrown off by everything, and mainly it's like it was his acceptance of string theory, pretty much, because that was a huge swing from his previous position, just not even a year before. A huge swing, like really big swing. Like, people change, but they don't change that big over that short amount of time. Which leads me to suspect that it's probably an argument that he flip-flops on.
I don't think so. Like, he says that he presented it earlier. Like, I honestly want to give him credit for being intellectually honest.
I hope so. I really do. But I don't know, because in the after show, they were talking about how Inspiring Philosophy uses this argument, and some other guy named Rags. So this seems to be like a popular argument now that has proven successful, and maybe Travis jumped on it. I'm gonna look into everything, and
Okay,
Travis,
again,
just so you know who you're dealing with, I'm gonna call you out. That's what I do.
Well, again, I'm gonna take the charitable view that he's being intellectually honest here. Kudos to you for changing your position on things in the presence of science, but I'm also gonna state I don't necessarily think that the science here is being fully understood. And I find that quite often when it comes to apologists. Now, I don't even know if without the help of my physicist friend, if I could fully understand the science. This is such high theoretical mathematical physics that most of us can sit there and try to read a paper and try to wrap our heads around it, and it'll take a long fucking time to get there.
And that's the thing. Like, I don't pretend to really, like, I can look at the theories, but I don't really pretend to subscribe to really any of them. Multiverse theory for me is like fascinating, but I only have this world and this universe as my reality. So because I'm not a physicist, I'm not some brilliant mathematician that can do the math of this. I don't know none of this shit. You know, like, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this shit. What I can do is look at the overall research, see that physics does not indeed point to any God. If it did, we wouldn't be talking about whether or not there's a fucking God.
So again, like, I think that there's a huge leap between these papers and, you know, like, the conclusion that you've reached, because I haven't seen any mention of a necessary mind directing it in any of the papers that I've managed to read.
Exactly. But again, like I really want this to be like me bashing on myself. I get so reactionary, and I'm like, Allie, I want to really pick on myself, and then we get here, and Travis is here, and it's like, let's fucking bash on Travis.
Well, and I'm not.
That is
again,
not
I'm
my.
bashing
That's not
on-
what I
I'm not
want to
bashing
do
on
at all.
Travis. I'm addressing the arguments that
Well,
are being
I
presented here.
am, because I'm such a fucking reactionary, and I need to stop.
Well, fucking stop being a troll, knock. We promised we were
I
gonna have
know.
fun. Don't be a troll.
I know. All right, so we're gonna continue, and we're gonna try to look for my faults, and you know, like, and honestly, I don't really want to give away too much about how I'm gonna rebut this either. So let's just like try as hard as we can just to focus on how bad I fucked it up. All right. So it's basically a theological argument.
No, it's not. No.
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 So
I mean, okay,
I've never heard of the universe being a hologram before. This is completely new to me. I'm a little stumped here.
No, it's actually quite
All right, so I'm always honest, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck's going on right now. Let's continue.
common. It's a common hypothesis. In fact, I mean, there's a lot of peer review. I mean, I can put it out in the.
Well, I mean, that's fine. That's cool. So
I can address the
so
layout.
this is going to be your model: is the universe is a hologram, and God is the mind behind it.
In a roundabout way, sure.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna stop right there, and I really tried to nail him down on this, and I think that this is when like Christians really started to freak the fuck out in the chat. Like this is probably the first time I ever had really Christians on my side. It was really weird.
Yeah, I remember people started losing their minds right about then. The question, I do applaud you for trying to understand what the argument he was making here was. When he said in a roundabout way and didn't really clarify, like again, he didn't really give you much to work with, because at that point, like how do you respond if you're saying, well, in a roundabout way, that's my argument. Okay, well, what is your argument then? That's the question I would have asked right there. So can you please explain your argument, like in a concise manner that we can then have a discussion?
Yeah, I was really trying really hard to understand it, because I'm sorry, Travis, you toss out a bunch of word salad, a bunch of smart words to try to make to give authority to your arguments, and really it just takes away from people being able to understand them. So yeah, I was really trying hard to understand where the fuck he was going with this. Again, a God projecting a holographic universe. Yeah, that piqued my interest, and I think it was about this point that I probably started pulling it up on my other screen.
Yeah, so I think that the big thing here is that you needed to ask for a proper clarification. Can you sum up your argument, in a couple of sentences? What specifically is your argument here? You're arguing that the universe is a hologram. All right, I've got that. You're claiming the science backs you up. I've got that. What is your argument about God? Because it was the topic of the debate was, does physics prove God? And I did not hear in there him present his argument for what specifically proves God. What I heard was
I think I get there.
link
I think I get there soon.
Yeah, quantum cognition and the concept of a like deity mind, which, as somebody who believes that the gods are disembodied mind, this interests me greatly as a theist. But I did not actually hear those two get linked up, and I think you should have pressed him harder here on that.
Yeah, I agree. Like, 'cause I was trying to rebound and trying to figure out his argument, but I do think I start, and every time I asked him, he just goes to that same really sciencey explanation that he gave at the beginning. Well, I already told you this, and then he regurgitates the same thing that he said before, and it doesn't explain how you're getting to God. It's just some sciencey explanation. Most people aren't going to understand. The people that do understand, as you said, when you reached out to somebody that does understand, they're like, what the fuck is he talking about? But we'll continue. Fine. Awesome. No need for an opening statement. Let's just get to open conversation. Sweet.
Okay, so do you want me to like do a teleological argument? I mean, it's not really.
Well, no, we're beyond that now. This is very, very interesting. I fucked up right there, because like he just gave me the opt-in back to go right back to my philosophical argument. I'm like, no, let's not do that.
Nope, you've already got your hooks in me. This is where you did majorly fuck up, considering he still is making a teleological argument. He is still making a therefore God argument. We need to figure out what the fuck that argument is. Because ultimately, whether you're arguing science or not, even science itself is grounded in the philosophy of naturalism. So, like, you know, you can't say, I'm arguing the science, get your philosophy the fuck out of here. Like, philosophy is the root of all argumentation.
He's telling me to look into idealism, and I know what idealism is. I know what determinism is. I know what naturalism is. I understand all of that stuff. I don't understand how it applies. I will look into it, I promise. But yeah, like, I totally fucked up right there, because he gave me an opt right back in to really grilling him on the theological argument that he was presenting, or figuring out that theological argument anyway. And I was just like, nope, fuck it. Let's just do this.
Yeah, which is really dumb, because again, ultimately, the teleological argument is the foundation of the argument you guys are making.
Yeah, and I came to that conclusion later, like, yep, you are making a theological argument. It just took a really long time for me to decipher what the argument was. It took a really long time for me to get there.
All right, well, we can continue, but yeah, like, this is the point where I was like, you definitely fucked up. Like, you had a chance to recover, and you fell on your face.
Yeah, without a doubt, I totally fucked up this first part of the debate. Hologram. Okay. So what is the definition you have for the God that you're believing in and putting forth is the director of this hologram? All right, so I decided that my best course of action was try to pretty much get him focused in on a Christian God, because I just, at this point, I'm trying to learn about the holographic principle while I'm talking to him. There's no way that a Christian God can be the God of this holographic principle. So that's, in my mind right there, that's my conclusion where I need to leap to. I think I eventually get to really nailing him on some of the science and his inconsistencies, and relaying some of the science that I did research for coming into this. There we go. There's my phone. But I made a decision right there. That was kind of like my stall technique. Let's get him to define his God, so we can talk about how the Christian God isn't this one.
Yeah.
But we'll continue.
As far as like how I view, I would be a panentheist or an idealist.
And so I don't get a straight answer. That can mean a lot of different things to me. So like I'm expecting him to give me a definition of God, and he just gives me what I consider to be, let's flesh this out a little bit. Let's talk about my definition of a God.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, you know, trying to figure out the definition of the God that you're proposing exists is going to be key to any sort of debate, philosophy, science, or otherwise. Like, it's like when you start talking about, you know, say Matt Powell's bullshit when he goes, do you believe that life could have emerged from non-life? My first response to that is define life. Because if you can define it better than the scientists who've been fighting over the argument for life, you know, for a definition of life that could, say, potentially include forms of life that we have not yet encountered on our planet, then maybe you're onto something that we're not. But like, even the definition of life itself is a pretty deep discussion. So you're going to have to define both what God means in this case, and also, even like if you're talking about a mind and things like quantum cognition, you're going to have to define a mind at that point too.
And yeah, and I mean, despite this bullshit answer, either later in the debate or maybe it was Q&A, which we will not be covering tonight, that he does get nailed down on having a Christian God. Like, he believes in the Christian God. And I you know, like I said, I want that third conversation to be, how can the Christian God be the God of this universe he's proposing now? A lot of Christians were very upset with you, Travis. A lot of them. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But let's continue.
And basically, you were wondering how the universe is projected as a hologram. It's through the process of quantum entanglement. Like I was saying,
that's fine. I'm not really interested in how why are you latching onto this model here? It's a change from the last debate I watched of you. So why are you latching onto this model now? And then I'll propose a different model for you.
Actually, this is the exact argument I used in my last debate.
Not at all.
As a matter of fact, Converse was the moderator. It was a tag team.
Oh no, all right, so I hadn't seen that debate. I'm not sure what debate he's talking about. I did research Travis, but not much came up because just not much came up. I saw the debate that James sent me. I didn't see any other debates, so this one was on me. I should have took more time.
So, since Travis is in the live chat, Travis, if you want to mention, was this on Converse Contenders channel that this happened rather than Modern Day Debate? Because we couldn't find another debate from you on Modern Day Debate itself, so maybe that was part of the reason we were having trouble. But coming back to this, you Travis did actually deflect here. He tried to go into, well, this is how the universe is a hologram. But again, the universe being a hologram has no bearing on God. And so that's where you again excuse me, a coughing fit. Sorry guys, you're gonna have to hear those. I'm not always gonna get to mute before they happen. This is where again you should have kept him on the subject. You asked him a question about the definition of God, he didn't answer it, you let him change the subject again. Yeah,
and that's something that has been a thing in debates that I'm really trying to work on, is not letting people off the hook and pursuing questions and making sure they get answered. I definitely failed there right there on that, because that is something that every debate that I'm going into, that's something that I'm making a point of, is making sure the questions get answered, and I didn't do that here.
Oh no, I know which one Travis is talking about now. Travis, you're talking about the one you did with Canadian Catholic, aren't you? The one where I came in and trolled at the end. Well, I guess trolling isn't necessarily what I did. What I
was
did
that like new? Was that newer?
Yeah, it was newer. We actually, a bunch of us actually watched that debate together just to kind of see how it would go. But Travis and Canadian Catholic teamed up against T-Jump and somebody whose name I don't remember. It was a chick that he had teamed up with, and they were debating. About a similar topic. But it was interesting because it looked like Travis and Canadian Catholic didn't quite have the same conceptualization of God on their side. And it looked like there was a similar issue between T-Jump and his debate partner. It was a really interesting debate to watch. I was accused of trolling at the end. I didn't really troll so much as I brought up that Canadian Catholic and I had a really interesting discussion in Ocean Server a while back, where we got into an argument over the origins of hell and whether or not there was any proof in the Bible that it was supposed to be one unified place, or whether the various places that Christians can, tend to collectively refer to as hell were actually etymologically different. And I mentioned that I had studied Greek and Hebrew and that Canadian Catholic had not. And so, the audience can imagine how that debate turned out for Canadian Catholic. So I think I actually do remember that debate now that you mention it. It's just that I don't think it actually comes up when you look up Travis Modern Day Debate. And I think that that's the problem.
Yeah, I just didn't see it. And I wish I would have, because it would have totally changed my preparation. But let's continue. The debate that I watched, I'm sorry, it was between you and T-Jump. James was the moderator.
Oh, yeah. That was on fine tuning. Actually, the debate was on, does science point more towards theism or atheism, I think? Something like that.
All right, so literally the debate that I agreed to was Travis just changed up the words. It was, does science lead to atheism or theism? The debate I agreed to was, does physics lead to atheism or theism? And then last minute, like usually happens on Modern Day Debate, without any notification, the title was changed and does physics lead to God? I didn't really have a problem with the change of title. I just had a problem with Travis trying to pretend like this was a fucking different debate.
All right, well, let's continue, because again, we're not talking about Travis's performance. We're talking.
I know,
about
but that threw me off. That stuck out immediately. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? You changed one name in the fucking title. The title got changed last minute. But what the fuck are you talking about here, dude? It's the same debate. You changed up your tactics. Kudos to you. I'll give you credit eventually. Well, you
Well,
changed
and
up
I
your
think-
tactics for the same debate.
Well, and right now, Travis currently has you in his hands, partially because we are now 10 minutes in. You know, we can say 8 minutes to be charitable because the first 2 minutes is rambling and music and all that stuff. But, like, we're now 10 minutes in and we still do not have a coherent definition for God. We still do not have the connecting tissue between these arguments that he's making. And you've asked these things and allowed yourself to get distracted and diverted several fucking times.
Oh, yeah,
that
I'm
it's
definitely
not
looking
clear
up,
to the audience that that's what's going on.
I'm definitely looking up holographic principle at this point. Definitely like reading and trying to do two things at once. And it becomes fairly apparent before too long, I think.
Like that.
I'm completely unfamiliar with your with the hypothesis you're running with, but that's fine because I've got a few myself. I'm interested in, so what's the physics behind this model that convinces you that this is it, that God is running this hologram, crazy. So what convinces you of this? Now you can give all those fancy names and all of that shit, but what is your evidence that it's God behind this holograph? And I don't know. I mean, and the fact that it's a holograph at all.
Okay, so why I think it's God is
All
it
right, so pause it
the
for a sec.
properties of mind.
All right, go
So
ahead.
it's clear that you're distracted, but I'm going to criticize the ever-loving fuck out of you here.
Oh, that's why you're here.
You asked him 6 different questions as one rambling sentence.
I know. I was totally rambling there. Totally like, what am I saying? Oh yeah. Oh, what am I saying? Oh yeah.
Yeah, you asked him 6 different fucking questions, and you gave him the option to answer whichever one he damn well pleased, because you were paying so little attention to the words coming out of your own mouth that whatever he said at that point, you would have accepted. Like, this is a problem. You do not need to be looking shit up during the middle of a fucking debate.
Yep. Lesson learned. Never do that again.
But like, you asked him 2 important questions, but you couched it in 4 questions he's going to want to answer instead, and that's the problem.
yeah. That was yeah. I mean, this first part, man, watching it back is brutal. Man, doing this like raw like this is hurtful, man. It's hurtful.
Yeah, but like there's what you did there. You asked him the 2 questions that were the most important to the title and subject of your debate, which were, you know, what convinces you that God is the thing behind this model? Which again, that's the point that still has not been spoken yet. Like, I know that he said earlier that he did explain that, but he didn't. He did not put the, you know, that linking connective tissue between those arguments. He presented the arguments. He presented, well, these are the scientific things that I'm using, but he did not present that connective tissue. And if you would have pressed him just on that question, then you could have had a very different discussion. And at that point, like, you might have actually been able to start to dissect his arguments, because we still don't know what they are. We know that he's claiming that quantum cognition somehow proves God, but he has not said how.
Yeah. I made the mistake of trying to learn about his argument at the same time as trying to dissect it. And you just don't, like, if I could stress to anybody that if you're thinking about getting into a debate, never let your interest overwhelm you. Don't research the shit. Wait till after. Continue with your argumentation. Continue as you had planned. It was my biggest mistake of this debate. And I think probably the first half of it, if I'm remembering it just from the night, was really hard. Even for me, I'm not going to lie. I was sweating. I'm losing this debate. I need to rebound. What the fuck is this holographic principle? What the fuck is he saying now? Don't do that. And I think that once I did start to rebound, I rebounded. I don't think that he proved that physics points to God. So I just don't even know if anybody really won this debate, because I think our definitions were so far off and they were never established. And that's probably my fault more than anybody else's.
Well, and that's the thing, is when you're having a discussion like this, and this is something that I actually had to do repeatedly. Like, I'm not talking myself up here. This is just something I had to do repeatedly when I went on Adventist Aramis' show. Like, one of the things that kept happening was that, say, for example, when we were both talking about justice, the pagan definition of justice is very different than the Christian definition of justice. The Christian definition of justice has a lot to do with punishment, whereas the pagan definition of justice has a lot more to do, or at least the Hellenist definition specifically, the one that I was working with under Stoic, justice has to do with a particular set of characteristics under the umbrella of virtue. And when it says that a god is a god of justice, what that ultimately means is very different than when Christians say that their god is a god of justice. So if we're working from fundamentally different definitions, I can make assertions about what justice means, and he can argue that no, my God can't be a God of justice because they don't do this, that, and the other. And what's going on is we're having an unproductive conversation because we are now trying to talk from two different definitions, in the same way that when a Republican and a Democrat start talking about freedom, they're working from two different places, and you can't talk until you agree on what a definition is. Right? So, you don't have God defined here yet, and you don't have the connective tissue for his argument. And what you ended up doing was you asked him for that, and you asked him for a definition of God here, but then you also asked him to start explaining the science again, which is what he was more interested in doing here, which, again, explaining the science doesn't give you that connective tissue for the argument. So you gave him 3 or 4 other questions around the science that would have allowed him to continue to deflect and not give you that connective tissue for that argument so you guys could have a productive discussion.
Yeah, I agree.
So again, that's my brutally honest opinion, but that is the big fuck up that you made here. You've had now 3 opportunities in the last 2 minutes to have gone back to figuring out what the connective tissues of this argument, what the structure of it actually is, and you blew them.
Well, yeah, it's something you do when you're reading a physics paper on holographic principle. Yeah, don't do that shit when you're debating, folks. We're 10 minutes in. I'm suspecting that the debate's about 40 minutes, so this could be a long stream, guys.
Based on studies in quantum cognition, which is basically, it's like a quantum mind, theory of quantum mind, and it's like our thought processes and decision-making processes, or quantum, it's like information processing in an entangled state. And it's the same state that the universe emerges from. And why I think it's a holograph is based on quantum entanglement and it being a unstructured information.
Okay, so that right there.
Yeah.
Now you have something close to connective tissue for your argument. You've got him claiming that the quantum cognition is about our minds, and he absolutely says that right there, that it's about our minds and how our thought processes work. And then you have him saying, and that emerges from a universal mind. All right, now you've got that connective tissue. That's the argument you need to go after. I don't think you recognize that at the time, but that's the argument you need to go after. Now, whoa. Where are you jumping from human cognition having to do with quantum entanglement to a universal mind having cognition that has to do with quantum entanglement? We need to know where this leap is coming from, because most of the papers that I've read on this, they might have stated that quantum cognition, that the laws that govern quantum cognition emerged around the expansionary period. But every single paper that I have looked up so far, and I've been reading them as we've been listening to this also, though, I've been able to do some research on this since the debate. Everything I said, there is no attempt here to explain the physiological origins, the physical origins of these things in the universe. They make no attempt to explain that. They make no attempt to claim that there are minds, et cetera, et cetera. It's literally a linking of psychological models with the randomness that is also apparent that undermines the predictive power of models that are specifically, say, self-interested or logic-based. So quantum cognition is that link between randomness and psychology. Nowhere in any of those papers do they link it specifically to any sort of mind that operates outside of the universe. They're specifically talking about human minds. So this is the point where you should have jumped right the fuck in there, and you didn't see it.
Well, I didn't know it because I didn't research that coming into this debate. So there's no way for me to possibly know that.
But even then, you still found that connective tissue where he goes.
No, I didn't see it. I did. There was no way for me to understand anything that he just said because I hadn't prepared for his argument for why God was behind it, because it was a different argument than the one he had presented before and I had prepared for.
Well, but even if you hadn't, like in that moment when he said human psychology, or when he said like
In that
human
moment,
minds,
I
and
was
then he
half
said,
listening and reading about holographic principle, trying to get my mind behind a Christian God, because you see right there on the screen,
Knock.
Travis Christian.
Are you gonna make excuses, or are you gonna
Well,
listen?
I'm going to give you the thought processes of what I'm going through right now. I'm only half listening to him. I'm reading about holographic principle. I'm reading Christian beside his name, and I'm trying to process how the fuck this guy is a Christian and putting forth any of the things that he's just saying. I've dealt with a lot of Christians. I've dealt with some weird Christians. I'm sorry, Richard. I love you. You're a weird Christian. I have never dealt with anything this fucking weird when it comes to Christianity. I was trying to process that. I'm not giving excuses. I'm just telling the truth.
Yeah, so like again, if you were not in the middle of burying your face in articles, like at that point, he actually created that connective tissue for you to go after and try to get him to expand on it, and you could have exposed.
Oh, I
how much
agree.
he
Yeah,
actually understood that
he
argument.
linked it a little bit there. But again, like he doesn't link it to his God or to any God really whatsoever. And you're
Well,
right.
he
I should
links
have
it to
picked
a
up on that, but
universal
I
mind.
wasn't listening. I was at this point probably deep into the trying to figure out what holographic principle was. I only had pulled up one paper on it. It's a paper that I'm going to actually go back and read again. It's really, really fascinating, honestly. But again, I just can't. I still cannot picture how a Christian can come to that determination and call themselves Christian. I understand that inspiring philosophy does it. I also understand that inspiring philosophy is a fucking. I'm not going to say what I don't like that dude, so I'm just going to put it that way. I'm not impressed by him. So yeah, I see what you're saying, Ali, and I completely agree. I dropped the ball, but it was because I was only probably half paying attention. I was trying to figure out how to stop sweating and how to really rebound, and I did miss that opportunity.
Okay, go. Like we can continue, but that's the big thing. Is there's the closest thing to connective tissue for his argument, like the building blocks that we've gotten so far, and you missed that.
Yeah, sorry, my phone is going crazy. So yeah, let's continue. Sorry. All right.
I would also argue that the information that it emerges from, in order to have information.
Well, and just to put it out there, I think I actually got two more debates coming up on Modern Day Debate really fast. Easter debate on the origins of Easter, and then I'm going to be in a triple threat debate on, if I can read it real quick. Shit, it's not up. A triple debate on capitalism, socialism versus communism. I told James I'm not necessarily a socialist, but I feel comfortable arguing from a socialist position. So yeah, we're working out that's why my phone was going up.
He said that the audience doesn't tend to like when people argue from a different position, like than the one that they really hold. So we don't know if you're still doing that one.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not really a socialist, so I was trying to, I was honest for that reason. I can argue from that position, but I'm not a socialist.
All right, anyway, let's continue.
All right, yep, let's go.
Information, you need a source of intelligence. I mean, because our universe, according to pan-computationalism, our universe can be described like modeling a quantum computer that, like, binary digits, ones and zeros and everything. We can describe phenomena occurring, that it's remarkably similar to computer science.
I guess. So why would you? Again, this didn't come up in my research at all. So why wouldn't you believe in something along the lines of string theory or multiverse theory? All right, so you know that this is where I wanted to get to. And at this point, you're right. I missed what I should have picked up on from his last explanation. You pointing it out really pointed it out to me. So thank you very much for that, Ali. But you know that I wanted to get here, and this is where he's going to really throw me off a bit. And then but I think that this is where he allows me to respond, because at this point I was just like, wait, what the fuck? We're just going to talk some science now.
Okay, yeah, and this is also where he said, again, this necessitates a universal mind because things can be modeled mathematically. All right, you now have an if-then statement. You need to go the fuck after that shit.
Yeah, but and I wasn't because I wanted to get to this, and because I was reeling at this moment. I'm not gonna lie, like I was sweating. Took my hat off. I took my shirt off. I got down to my just my my fucking wife beater, my that little tank top you keep underneath the shirt so you don't show your fat off. I was down to that shit. I was sweating, but I do think that I was able to rebound because I had actually researched physics so fucking much. I think we're about to get to that part. I remember that happening. I guess we're gonna see if it happens live right here, Ali.
But now he just gave you something to sink your teeth into. He made 3 major statements where you're finally starting to get the connective tissues of his argument. This is where you needed to go and start picking those ideas apart.
Well, yeah, and this is why you would have totally been better for this debate than I, because this is totally your playground right here. I was delving into something that I never tried to delve into just because I'm like fearless and I'm like, fuck it, let's do it, James. And I was prepared for it. I didn't perform like I had wanted, and I've been very obvious about that.
Well, anybody who's ever watched me debate, I'm going to give a hint to anybody who ever debates me in the future. You know what I'm really fucking good at? You know what makes me an absolutely terrifying debate opponent? Close fucking listening. I go into a zone where I hear every word that comes out of your mouth and start to pick it apart in my brain as soon as you say it. So, like, when I'm critiquing your debate performances and shit, it's because that's what I'm good at. Like,
yeah, this is your cup of tea.
Argument. Like, that's what makes me a terrifying debate opponent to deal with. I will find your argument and I will drill you down to the core values of it, which is why word salad shit like this does not work on me. Like Matt Powell's whole questioning thing, like, there are 2 things I'm good at. The big one being like, drilling down through word salad and finding these points. He's rambled quite a lot throughout this, and I know that a lot of these things he thinks are essential to his argument, but ultimately the argument that he's made just now was that because of the fact that we can model physics theoretically using mathematical equations, that necessitates a mind. That was the statement he just made. Now we have a debate. Now we have a discussion. That's a starting point.
And this is where in the live chat, the person kept asking for an equation. Just give an equation. Just give an equation, a mathematical equation that says God. And I should have asked that question. It would have been a legitimate question, but I didn't. I jumped to string theory because I wanted to get into something that I understood, and I've been reading about holographic principle, and I came to the fairly quick decision that I needed more time to understand that than I had in a debate on modern day debate. So I think I'm trying to get to comfortable ground here. We'll see how I remember bouncing back. Like, I hope I'm not thoroughly disappointed in myself, Ali, because that's going to ruin my whole perception. I'm here locked in the house. I mean, who fucking knows? Might fucking grow a mullet or something. Oh yeah. So let's talk about it.
I'm sorry. No, I hold to super string theory. In fact, the holographic principle is a tenet of string theory.
All right. So
basically, when we get to the macro, I would argue that once the fundamental force breaks, then we into the 4 fundamental forces. Then we start having like phenomenon like the strong weak nuclear force constants, gravitational force constants, ratio of the electromagnetic force to the gravitational force, and all this.
All right, without talking too long, right here, he just confuses me more. I'm just confused more. Right here, I'm really trying to process the fact that he did say that this theory was speculative, should not be taken seriously. Previously, he's changed his position since. And I hadn't heard of holographic principle. I'm looking at it. I'm trying to get away from looking at it. But he's going to draw me back into looking at it right here because, again, I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? So I have to ask him about it, and he's going to say, well, string theory is a tenet of holographic principle. Then I have to start looking at it again. Damn, I hope I rebound, Ali. I'm going to be disappointed in myself.
All right, so I just want to shout out to a couple of people in the chat. Sup, Athena. I said nice things about you again, so thanks for hanging with us. Hey, Iron Charioteer. Long time no see. I noticed you were in the chat last night too. We got Nathaniel in the chat. We've also got Geo Sam and Tony. So we've got a few people who are still with us. I haven't seen Travis post in a while. Travis, let me know if you're still there. I'm not just picking apart your arguments, dude. I'm really not. I'm mostly going after Knock and telling him where he should have razored in on shit. Because honestly, one of the things you can do in a debate you need to understand the person's argument. And unfortunately, Travis has only presented one actual argument so far. He's presented a lot of what he calls scientific fact. And some of these things are well-established research, sure, but again, science doesn't really deal in facts. A lot of people think it does, but it doesn't. It deals in most likely, it deals in most likely explanations, and anything can be refined further. That's part of what science is. But he's going back into discussions of the science when really, again, he gave you an actual philosophical point and you got lost in the science again. Like, you had a moment where you could have cut in and you actually started to recognize that, and then you let him talk over you. So yet again, here's another place where you fell on your face.
Yeah. And I think my biggest, fuck up through all of this debate was, and I told Ali this before, I actually went into the debate, is I can't let Travis sidetrack me with the science, because I know what I researched, but if I let him get me off of that and really delve into the science, he was going to get me. I needed to keep it, and my strategy was to keep it for most of the debate to a philosophical debate on teleology. That was my strategy, and I got off my strategy, as we shown from the very first minute of this debate, and I had a few opportunities to really get back into that strategy. I did not take those opportunities. That was my failure, because I am somebody that's learning debate. I am learning as I go. I make mistakes, and I try not to make those mistakes again. And I clearly dropped the ball through the first half of this debate, without a doubt. I mean, without a doubt. So let's continue, though.
This starts occurring afterwards.
So there's your constants. Okay, so again, how is it God? Like, you keep saying this quantum thing. I would actually literally have to read that article. And yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to have read that article, but I don't see anything. Like, when I look at string theory and I look at multiverse theory, we're looking at like dark flow. And we're seeing that our universe probably isn't alone, that there's probably multiple universes out there. What is how do you know that it's God? Because I don't see anything pointing to God. Physics isn't pointing to God. Physics is basically just a methodology that's bringing in information, and there's a lot of different cosmological theories out there. I've never heard of this holographic universe, like multiverse.
Okay, so I'm gonna pause really quick. You gave him way too much here. Like, I'm
still scrambling at this point, no doubt.
Yeah, you asked him the very important question there. How does this point to God? And then, you gave a little bit of explanation. You talked about dark flow. You talked about string theory, but then you kept going. And the problem is, the more you give your opponent to work with, like in terms of things, he can then choose from the smorgasbord of options you've given him and respond to what he feels like. Last time, he responded to what he felt like, and he kept going and talked over you when you tried to respond to the thing that you could have. Now, again, you're giving him that whole buffet of things to do again. You have to be very focused when you go after somebody's arguments. If you're going to ask a question, ask the question. You don't have to you don't owe somebody an explanation for why you're asking the question. If you want to give some sort of foundation, limit it to a few sentences. But right here, what you did was you gave him a buffet again. Like, you keep offering shit up to him on a silver platter.
I was giving him my own version of word salad there. So again, I'm scrambling, and I'm trying to get on track. And at the same time, your major criticism of the whole debate is coming into play here, because he's piquing my interest. He's talking like he believes that the Christian God is the God of the multiverse. Now, for the layman, and I've had people comment, like, people that understand physics would think that I won the debate, because I was literally asking him how he could get behind this shit. Because if you understand multiverse, you understand that there's a lot of theories, but in none of those theories is multiverse like 2 or 3 universes. You're talking thousands, you're talking billions, you're talking infinite numbers where the Big Bang never stopped, because there's theories out there that it used a quantum field as fuel, and that fuel would never stop. It's it never ends. It's just keeps going and just burping out universes. So in the 32 billion years that our universe has been here, that Big Bang has been happening for other universes. So you're talking an infinite number of universes, and now you're trying to talk like a Christian God is the God of all of that and somehow cares about the human race here on Earth. It's really fascinating to think about how Travis got his mind around all of that if he really subscribes to multiverse theory.
Well, and also at that point, you'd have to argue about how a god like that could have qualities that would allow it to interact with any and all of those universes, many of which could have different theoretical fundamental constants.
Physics points to the fact that each universe would be fundamentally different. The physics of that universe would be different. That the physics of this universe is so-called fine-tuned for carbon-based life forms because it has to be, or we wouldn't be here, right? So in a multiverse and in an infinite possibilities of universes where physics would be different in each one, well, sometimes you would, I mean, physics would be to where like galaxies couldn't form, planets couldn't form, like shit just wouldn't fucking happen. And if life did happen, it would not resemble to the life that we see here in this universe. So a Christian God does not equate to that at all. And I'm trying to wrap my brain about how this Christian got here.
Well, and so again, the criticism was not about the argument. You keep going back into the arguments. What I'm telling you is,
well, I know, yeah, I'm dropping the ball, yeah, without a doubt, because I'm just like, what the fuck?
With you is right here is you just gave him a big fucking platter to respond to. Because again, remember also what I've told you before when we've reviewed Misha Popov's article. What was one of the things I told you? If you want people to forget details, bury them in a big list. Put them in the middle, and that's how you hide shit. Like if you're, say, a mystery writer, and you want a really important clue to be there in the script, you want it to be there in your manuscript, but you don't want people to remember it until it's important to bring it up. So, oh, it's magic. How did I not think of that? You put it in a big, long fucking list, and you bury it somewhere in the middle. Why? Because people remember shit that are said at the beginning and at the end. So if you're going to make a big long point like that, if you're going to give a bunch of like supporting arguments, end it with your question. Don't bury your question in the middle, because now the audience is going to forget you asked it. And he now has a justification to pick anything you said out of that if he's listening closely and answer that instead. And he's most likely to answer either the first thing you said or the last thing you said. And I can guarantee you he's going to pick one of those two things.
Well, that's a definite lesson from this debate. If you do go into defense mode, if you do go into question mode, keep your questions short, keep them concise, and don't allow yourself to get carried away. And I try to learn from all of these experiences. And that's why we really wanted to review this, is so we can focus on where I went wrong. And so, just so people don't think Allie's beating up on me here, I told her to do this coming into this tonight. Give it to me, Allie. We're going to talk about where I went wrong. And for far too often, and it could just be a natural human reaction because it's my debate, I'm trying to take it to Travis. Yeah, I totally told Allie to do this. And I need to hear this. This is the only way that I'm going to get better in these performances. And I knew I lost the first half of this debate. I had no question of that coming out of that debate, because I was, like I said, I was sweating. I was taking off clothes. I was fucking feeling the heat.
So, sup, Travis? I'm glad to see that you're still there in the chat. Again, my criticisms are more of not. We can address your theories later. I mean, fuck, if you're still around by the end of this, you could even come on and say hi if you want to talk to me. But I'm going after Knock, and I'm trying to teach him basic debate tactics and discussion tactics, because the truth is, like, a lot of this just has to do with how you present arguments and the best way in terms of tuning the, human cognition to pay attention to your points, how the best way to present your point in order to both get the question you're trying to ask answered if the person's an honest interlocutor, which again, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt and believing that you are. If the person's an honest interlocutor, if you want your question asked, open with it or end with it. You don't bury it in the middle. That's what I'm criticizing you here for.
Yeah, but and also, Travis, like, nothing goes against your argument. So that's another thing about your argument. I'll point that out later as we get, because it doesn't matter how I go at your argument, because your argument supposedly doesn't rely on anything. Each individual aspect of it. I'm responding to what he's saying right now. I'm sorry, but like each individual aspect of your argument, you'll say it yourself several times, and that's just not how it works. Your argument doesn't really have much merit. We're breaking down my performance here. But you can't just say, well, my argument isn't dependent on that, so we can't talk about that. That's bullshit.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that stuff later, but right now, like, the big thing I'm focusing on, Knock, is your rhetorical technique. Because
I know, yeah, I know, but you know me, I'm reactionary. I gotta respond. I can't just let shit slide. It's my problem. Here we go.
Orla, welcome to the chat, by the way.
I said, here we go. What?
Oh, I was saying welcome to the chat to Orla. Orla Seraph is hanging out with us.
What up? What up, Orla? Anything about a holographic universe linked to any of that?
I'm surprised. It's pretty common in quantum gravity. But going back to string theory,
You say, but it wasn't. It's not. It didn't come up. Yeah. So this was probably my weakest argument. I think of the entire fucking. Like, no, it wasn't. It wasn't because it didn't come up in my search. So that was pretty ridiculous on my part, I think.
Yeah, I mean, let's keep going. But again, like, the big thing here is you keep missing the places where you can go after him.
Sorry, shit's like not working right for me. What was that?
Oh, I was saying, like, still, the big point here is you keep missing the places where you could go after him.
Yeah.
And you keep missing the places where he doesn't answer your questions. Also, you don't press him enough.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not pressing him, and I'm not catching it because he does have me reeling. And I've been fully transparent about that. It's kind of funny because I mean, it's only funny if you knew how much preparation I put into this. Allie does, and just how mentally tired I was, afterwards. So.
Yeah, we went over it for an hour before stream. Like, he played a lot of his arguments off on me. I did a lot of responses, like, from the positions that I've seen, like, creationists take in a lot of these debates. Like, there's a lot of, like, we went into a lot of prep for this stuff. And yeah, like, Travis came out of kind of nowhere as far as we were concerned because we hadn't seen that other debate. But again, the big problem here is ultimately Travis wants to think it's a science debate. It's not. Yeah. It's a philosophical debate. It is where do you link your science to your philosophy? Where do you get the demand for mind? And he started to answer that question. He gave you a little bit of connective tissue. He gave you a God of the Gaps earlier, but like you didn't recognize it. He
was never gonna have the philosophical debate with me. He didn't in the debate that we seen with T-Jump. I knew he wasn't going to. I knew that I couldn't let him get me sidetracked from him. That was my great failing, is I let him get me sidetracked from it from the very beginning, because the teleological argument is easily argued against, and he understands that. So he doesn't. His argument isn't contingent upon a theological argument, so it doesn't rely upon a theological argument. I mean, it's just complete and utter bullshit. I'm sorry, you can say it, Travis, doesn't make it true. We will continue though. But it is my great failing because I should have just nailed him on the theological argument like I planned from the very beginning and didn't let him derail it into a science argument. Because as much as I get fascinated by the science, he probably actually understands the science a lot better than I do. Maybe other people have. I haven't heard you talk about it either.
Okay, so actually, according to string theory, the holographic principle is a core tenet of string theory. And interestingly, the quantum, space-time emerging from quantum entanglement is a necessary feature of our. If we want to have a theory of everything, it's our best hypothesis.
Those are and
what's also interesting is
interesting assertions.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if I remember right, I think I'm starting to
holographic. I don't remember the holographic principle being an absolute essential bit of string theory personally from my research, but again, that's neither here nor there. This is
I'm still looking it up at this point, and I did look it up, and string theory is intrinsic for holographic principle. I did get that far, so he is correct about that.
String theory is intrinsic for the holographic principle, but I don't know if the holographic principle is intrinsic.
Oh yeah, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. When I was researching string theory, holographic principle never came up once.
So he's making the converse. He's making the claim here that the holographic principle is intrinsic for string theory, and I would citation needed there. But again, that's the problem, right? Because you did not stick to your guns here, he got to answer the question he felt like answering, which is more talking about, okay, well, let's go back into the science. Well, no, we're not talking about the science, and I'm not even sure if he's talking about the same science, because he brought up 6 or 7 different, scientific concepts, many of which, again, aren't even, a lot of these are high level theoretical physics. Like, a lot of these are untestable fucking theories. String theory included, by the way. String theory is a thorn in physicists' side, because it can't even be wrong. right? We have evidence that there are other universes. That's Dark Flow. That's pretty compelling fucking evidence. But like even string theory itself can't even be wrong. Like this, it's a fairly it's a thing you can struggle to argue with. But, and this is the big, fucking huge, like my sized ass, me calling myself fat here, but seriously, like, he is still like rambling about science and giving you this fucking dirty look. And here's all of the optics for the audience. You asked him to link it to God, and he's rambling about a bunch of different scientific theories here, or not even theories, a bunch of different scientific like concepts that might or might not exist. We're not even sure if they've graduated to theory because they're not even tested. A lot of these, they can't even be tested. Like they're just fucking math.
Well, yeah,
and
if you're talking about
the two major arguments that he has presented that you could actually address, God of the Gaps earlier when he claimed that there must be a mind because we can model the universe mathematically, and then before that when he linked quantum cognition to the idea of a universal mind without providing the connective tissue between the two. You have not touched either of those yet.
Yeah, I agree. And shit, I had a point about. Like if you're talking about multiverse theory, it's not only untestable. Like scientists theorize that it might never be testable. Like even in a million years of advancement, we might not be able to test whether or not there are actual other universes. That's how untestable multiverse theory is.
However, we do have some strong evidence that in the
with Dark Flow, we have strong evidence of it without a doubt.
Yeah, but I mean, multiverse theory.
I will be right back, Allie. I gotta pour another soda. I'll turn off my camera. My glass is empty. I'll be right back.
Well, and here is another thing. Like this is another point that could have been made here, and I guess Knox AFK. So I'm going to make this point to the audience. There's also a problem here. And I think that this is a fundamental philosophical problem that a lot of monotheists in particular tend to run into. But it's this idea of, and I know that earlier, like Iron Charioteers said, science tries to get to the facts. That's true. Science does endeavor to eventually get to the facts. However, science itself deals in most probable explanations, not facts. The thing is, religion itself purports to deal in absolutes. Science generally doesn't. There's a reason why there's a very short list of what we consider to be laws of the universe, as opposed to using language like theories and hypotheses. Theories, hypotheses, and concepts. The word theory there, it doesn't mean that it's not most likely accurate. It doesn't make it any less powerful. It doesn't take away its explanatory power, but it is an honest expression of the fact that science itself can only ever continue to refine our understanding of what is replicable and testable. Period. Yeah. So Travis here is asserting science in absolutes from a monotheistic perspective, and that is a point that you could have made here very strongly.
Yeah, and I think I do try to get to that, like, because I do try to wrap my brain, like, I really want our third conversation to just be how, all right, so if in conversations 1, 2, Travis is able to win both of those debates and just really just nail down the science and prove to me that what he's saying is true, that third conversation then has to be, well, how is that the Christian God?
Well, and that's the big thing, Knock, is I think the skill that you need the most in this debate is close listening, because you've had so many opportunities you've missed. I know you were thrown off. I know there's all kinds of
psychological. I'm not even sure if at this point I'm back in the debate 100% yet, Ali. I might still be, because like he hasn't quite. I think right now is when I stop researching, because he just threw in the whole string theory thing being linked, and I think I'm looking at that right now. And then I will like grant him that he was right, that string theory and holographic principle are connected. Because I then went back in and started looking at that, and once I found that, then I think that's when I stopped actually looking at the other screen and get 100% back into the debate. But I could be wrong. I've already like thought that by now, by my memory, I would have been coming on a lot stronger and not so pussy, or it's not so weak. Sorry, I'm. I use the word, but
knock.
I am me. But I think I thought from memory that by now I would have came back strong, and so obviously my memory is faulty. But then again, we're only 14 minutes in because we're just long-winded people. So
Well, it's not just that. It's that there's like I had to bring in, several places where I'm just like, okay, right there, okay, right there, okay, right there. There's so many opportunities.
yeah, there's so much wrong with the first part of this debate. I think is undeniable, right? Yeah, knock fuck the first part up. Let's hope he didn't fuck up the second part as
Well,
bad.
and again, I've barely personally touched any of his arguments per se. I've just pointed out opportunities that you missed to go in and get clarifications and start to have a real discussion. Because right now, what you have is you floundering around, giving him an entire smorgasbord of things that he could answer or not, and then just kind of running with whatever he gives you rather than sort of being in any level of control. Like, you're not an equal participant in this discussion right now. Right now, you're knocked off your feet, like trying to fucking get back up on them. And it's very obvious to the audience.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and I think that's been my critique from the beginning. But I do remember doing better. So, hopefully that happens soon. I'm really disappointed. Like, again, audience, this is my first time watching it back. It's Allie's first time watching it whole. She did catch parts of it live. So yeah, this is interesting. First time I've ever actually reviewed a debate as well. So yeah, there's that. I think that has been fairly honest so far. Allie, your critiques have been spot on. I know, like, from my personal experience, that yes, I am reeling still at this point of the debate. Like, I am without a doubt still sweating it out. So we'll continue.
Is based on my argument. I can grant an infinite multiverse. I can grant.
So how is this
universe.
holographic principle involved in string theory? Do you understand what string theory is?
Yeah.
All right. So yeah. So he's pulling me back into actually looking at my computer screen right here, Allie. Right there. I'm like, wait a minute. No. So I'm looking for answers to that without relying on his. So I'm probably not listening to him at this point. We'll continue.
Yes, string theory, if you want me to explain it, it's the four fundamental forces are connected by tiny vibrating strings, and it necessitates higher spatial dimensions to correlate quantum mechanics with general relativity. And it's the holographic principle came up from study in string theory. And like I was saying, I can grant multiverses, even what we would consider an infinite regress, and it wouldn't be affected by the argument because anything that we can conceive of would be an emergent feature of the underlying information process.
So you get that right there. So right there, he's establishing that no matter how you come at his argument, he can't be wrong.
Effectively, that's what he's asserting there. And this is where, all right, so now you're back in your knowledge base. I'm hoping this is where you get your feet back under you, because now you guys are talking about something that you've actually researched. You should be able to get your feet back underneath you. But again, you still have, if you had been close listening through any of this, you still have several philosophical concepts that you can then go at that he has made assertions. Basically, he has God of the gaps to you at least once in this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think I do try to get there. I kept getting the analogy wrong. I kept trying to call it the watch something or another. It's the watchmaker analogy, which is the root of all teleological arguments. I think I do get there soon. I like, man, my memory of this debate is already so thrown off by actually watching it again that I don't want to rely on my memory, so I'm not going to answer.
So in terms, Spartan theology, in terms of what we're doing right now, like, Knock keeps talking shit and getting distracted by Travis in the side chat, but the vast majority of what I'm trying to do here is show Knock places in the debate where he missed opportunities. Like, I'm critiquing his debate performance rather than the ideas so much. Like, we're talking about the ideas a little bit tangentially just because there's some that I understand that I'm not sure if Travis does. But the most part, like, what we're talking about right now isn't necessarily the actual topics in the debate. It's where Knock fucked up his, like, actual performance.
Yeah, we're talking about me. We're not really trying to we're critiquing my performance compared to what I was prepared to do. And we're getting a little bit, I do keep getting sidetracked because I'm just such, I can only be me, but and Travis, I really like you, man. You're pretty cool, dude. But Yeah, I keep getting sidetracked on wanting to defend myself instead of critique myself. So
Well, that's
that's
why I
on
was
me.
like, you can either make excuses or you can hear what I have to say, Nog. Like,
Well, no, I'm hearing you though. I agree with everything you're saying. Like I've definitely missed several points in this debate to where I could have really brought it back to the philosophy that I'd prepared for. Because my debate performance was contingent on a very small amount of it actually being about physics and science. I wanted to have an argument about the argument, and I knew he wouldn't want me to do that. And the way he threw me off of it was just it threw me off for so long. It took, and I've said this from the very beginning. It took me way too long to rebound from that. I think I'm still probably reeling right now at this moment. We're only 14 minutes in. So yeah, I don't even think I'm quite recovered yet. But yeah, I'm trying to talk about it from like the perspective that I was going through and how I was freaking out and how I was fucking up. Allie's pointing out, you should have done this, you should have done that. Pretty good, I think, which is exactly what I asked her to do coming into it. I really don't want to criticize Travis too much because I think that his arguments are his arguments. I don't want to give away too much about how I might combat them in the second debate that we're going to have. But I do want to I want to learn from this debate performance for all of my future debates because I want to get better every single time I do a debate. Even if it's a debate like this one that's not necessarily my cup of tea, I'm much better at religious debates without a doubt. My goal is to learn from every one of these and not run away from my mistakes. And I make them live for everybody to see and learn from them. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing, Spartan. But we will continue right now.
Even what we would consider an infinite multiverse.
Are you familiar with the anthropic principle, the weak anthropic principle?
Yes.
All right, so you understand, like all of these principles are here. We exist, so of course we would observe the natural principles of the universe.
You're still getting your feet out from
Right.
under you.
Okay. So basically,
Yeah, I'm still trying to recover. Obviously, at this point, because Allie knows, like the weak anthropic principle was kind of like my recovery argument. So, like, if I'm going to that, then that's the argument that I really want to go to really probably get it on a philosophical level again.
We got a question in the side chat. Leia, the super chats are unavailable because we were demonetized. We got mass reported by somebody. We have suspicions as to who it was, but we got mass reported for hate speech when we covered Misha Popoff's work. We're fairly certain as to why our channel ended up getting flagged for it and as to who did the mass reporting. But as of yet, we are currently demonetized. If you want to be able to donate to Knock, either doing so through Patreon or doing so through his PayPal is the only way that you can currently provide money to the channel.
Yeah, because we actually fight bigotry here. Oh, did I just do that? Did I just rub a burn in there? Okay, let's continue.
that's kind of like the puddle analogy, to which I would apply the firing squad analogy.
Well, I mean, you're kind of giving me the watch analogy. I mean, you're coming from an argument of analogy. I mean, it's pretty. Yeah, the watch analogy. Like, what the? Like, I almost gave away my real name. Like, what am I even worried about that anymore? I'm like, what the fuck, Ronnie? the watch analogy. What the fuck? All right, let's continue. Clear. So you're proposing a holographic universe, and yes. I don't see any evidence of that. We have a physical world. We go through it. Nothing's holographic.
You attacked the wrong argument.
Yeah. You're right.
You finally get your feet back under you.
They're not quite under me yet, though. They're not like. I think it's obvious there, Ali, that they're not quite under me yet. I'm clear. I'm thinking of the watchmaker analogy. I say the watch analogy. I'm still trying to get those feet underneath me right here.
All right. And you know what, Leia? Like, go ahead and pop that comment up if you want to. Leia says, "I'm ex-NIFB and LGBT plus, and just wanted to thank him for his work." So, you know what? Thank you. You don't need a super chat for that. Thank you so much for thanking us. Like, thank you for popping into the chat and saying hello. You know, like the whole reason that Knock does this and the whole reason that I help out is because we're trying to get people out of those horrible belief systems where they're getting exploited and hurt. So thanks for coming in and saying hi.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. That's exactly why I do the work that I do, and fighting for people like you, Leia, fighting for any marginalized people as a whole. That's what I'm about. And those comments, and when I see that, I actually have a supposedly new NIFB member that wants to come on the channel because I'm the reason he's NIFB now. I invited him on because I think it's bullshit. So when I see comments like yours, and it's really good to come in to see them in the live streams every once in a while. So it makes me feel like I am doing the right thing, and I thank you for that, because I think a lot of people might not have quite understood just what they were in until you show them. So thank you so much for that, Leia. It does mean a lot, especially right now. You don't know the details of the drama behind the scenes, but right now that means a lot, and I want to thank you for that. But we are going to continue, Allie.
Okay.
Actually, we did. It's the holographic principle. It's based on the holographic principle, excuse me, and it's confirmed. We have good evidence from it from studying irregularities in the cosmic microwave background. Like I said, there was a UK, Canadian, and Italian.
Familiar with the CMB.
I'm sorry?
I'm familiar with the CMB, yes.
Okay.
All right, so right there, I don't know, but it's almost like he didn't know what the CMB was, but he just said the entire word of it, and it kind of threw him off there, like, and just that little thing right there is like, maybe he doesn't, maybe he is just reading an argument that he's heard before. And I really want to look at Inspiring Philosophy and this guy Rags that they told me about that makes this particular argument, because CMB is, I mean, that's how people say it. They don't say the long version. They say CMB.
So Korag, earlier in the debate, he did actually explain what he meant by holographic. So we covered that bit earlier. But coming back to this, like, as far as I don't at any point want to accuse Travis of not understanding.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was just pointing that out. I'm sorry. Like that did stick out to me during the debate. I'm like, huh? Like, you don't like. I don't know. Like, it was almost like he didn't understand what CMB was, but maybe my question just threw him off. So yeah, we should give him the benefit of the doubt.
I think it's possible to understand a concept and still make logical leaps that are not possible within that concept because of cognitive bias. And that's what, again, I think is going on here with the idea of quantum cognition and relating quantum cognition to a disembodied mind. And again, this is coming from a theist. So, like...
Spartan Theology was like, also Christian Idealism is a channel that talks a lot about this argument. Thank you, Spartan. I'll definitely look at that because I do want to research this argument. I want to know it before I go back into that second conversation. And hopefully that second conversation won't be me reeling for, God, it's been 16 minutes of me reeling on my feet. And that's not good. I don't think that after watching this back, I can honestly say, as I did before, well, I think I still won the debate. I just didn't start well. No, I mean, if you're reeling for 16 minutes, you don't win that debate, right? Not if the debate's 40 minutes long.
Yeah, so, like, again, you went after the wrong argument. You got the opportunity to get your feet back underneath you. He stopped talking. You got a chance to actually say something impactful, and you went after the hologram stuff instead of any of the other nuggets that he dropped for you all throughout.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, that's your bad there.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly. Yep, good criticism. That's what I like here. That's what I like. All right, let's finish. Let's get through. Oh, man, are we gonna? We've been streaming for almost 2 hours and we're 16 minutes in, Ellie. We talk a lot.
There's a lot to talk about. You done fucked up, Knock. I've been waiting for over a week to tell you all the ways you fucked up.
I know. I said that we'd do the whole debate part. We might have to break that shit in two. I don't know.
We don't know. We don't know when I'm going to be able to stream again. So, like, we might as well have our fun.
I know, but I got a kid. I can't
Yeah,
be
and you're gonna
streaming
be
for
tired by the end of the night.
4
I
or
don't
5
care.
hours straight. I just can't do that shit this time of day. Like, I
Yes,
didn't
you
think it would take
can.
this long.
Yes, you can. We started early, so you could. We can do this. You got this.
Yeah, I got to spend some time with her. So we're gonna go till like 9 at the latest. But we'll continue. You can continue now.
Yeah. Okay. So no, I was just going to say that we have confirmation of this. That there's more evidence for the holographic universe than there is for the traditional theory, based on studies of the irregularities in the cosmic microwave background. And like I said, with quantum, emerging from quantum entanglement, a good way to look at it.
It's interesting. So I still need to know how you're getting God out of it. I'm looking at it now. The first I'm seeing it, first I'm hearing about it. It's interesting. All right. So when I tell him that, that's pretty much essentially when I stop looking at it. I do remember that at the debate. So hopefully I will start performing better very soon. No doubt about it. But how are you getting to God?
I've kind of described that based on.
No.
If you want to look it up, it might help. Look up quantum cognition, then quantum decision theory.
All right, so he literally wants me to look up all this other shit now while we're in a debate.
Yeah, I mean, you were already trying to do that. So, like, that advice was not good advice, of course. But
Yeah,
at the
I
same
didn't
time,
take it. That's, I mean, there's no fucking way I can look up all
But
this
I
shit.
mean,
We're
like,
in a debate.
But, like, I'm going to point this out, and this is a criticism of his response, but it's a criticism that you should have leveled at the time. If your response to how is it God is go read the paper, then clearly you don't understand your own argument enough to present it. I said this earlier with somebody who was a conspiracy theorist on our channel. If you can't answer us with basic information about this thing that you're claiming is happening, then can you actually speak to the fact that you understand it enough to make that argument? I would have leveled that same response at Travis. Like, you are making this claim that somehow this concept of quantum cognition automatically leads to God. Citation needed. Like, don't tell me to go read the paper. You're presenting the argument. You explain it to me.
Yeah, exactly. Mars P. We're not going to call Travis Mars P. He's not a douche like that.
No, he's not. But but that is a thing that you could have said right here.
Oh, no,
His
yeah, I
response
hear
was
what you're
read
saying.
the paper, and
I'm
your
trolling
response should
now.
have been explain it to me then.
I'm trolling now. Don't let me troll, Allie. Come on. What's wrong with you?
Well, again, Travis is not Mars P here, but he's pulling the same shit that Mars P pulled.
Was that
And
even
your
his name,
response
Mars
should have been-
P? Or am I
It
just
was
pronouncing
P-Mars. It was
P
Pluto
Mars?
Mars.
P Mars, yeah.
So, like, when you turn around, like, when he said, go read the paper, your response should have been, well, you read the paper, explain it to me. This is your argument, not mine.
Yeah. We'll see what I say.
And see how it correlates to what the universe emerges out of, namely the information processing in an entangled state.
All right, so it's essentially a teleological argument. You're all right. I didn't say what you said. I'm trying to get back on philosophy. So, like, I'm all over the fucking place at this point. Like, I don't understand his argument. I don't understand his holographic principle. I'm lost smack dab in the middle of a modern day debate that I knew going into it. I needed to perform decent. That was a major focus and why I spent so much time researching the subject. So yeah, at this point, I think we can honestly say that this has been a fucking travesty.
Yeah, like, the dumpster's already on fire and you're warming your hands on it.
Yep. All right. So let's see where I go. You're proposing this is the holograph of the universe. The fine tuning of the holographic universe is due to either physical necessity, chance, or design. That's your first premise right there. That's a premise. I'm guessing because this is a teleological argument. You're trying to say it's not, and then you try to say it was. So let's talk about it. This holographic universe, it starts with a fallacy because there's so many different possibilities to. All right, so I'm fucking up the explanation of the argument that I was really, really prepared to give. I did not tell what fallacy it was. I just said a fallacy. So people are like, what are you fucking talking about? Didn't say false trichotomy. Didn't really, I wasn't going from notes at that point, but probably a little frustration. So I'm not really satisfied with what I'm hearing from myself right here either.
I mean, you said it.
This is quantum gravity. How is it a fallacy?
You're trying to put it on physics, but you're doing the same. It's a teleological argument, and then you're jumping to a conclusion of God. It's not due to physical necessity or chance. Therefore, it's due to design. That designer is God, and therefore God exists. This is a very actually weak argument when it comes for the existence of God. You're not arguing that physics points towards God. You're arguing that you do, and we should listen to your physics to be the example of it.
Okay, so
yeah.
I mean, that's a very bad explanation of what you were trying to say he does. And I think to a certain extent, he hadn't actually said that quite yet. What he had said was that because we could map the universe onto mathematical equations and such that necessitated a designer, it's a similar principle, but unfortunately here, what you did was you went to your script rather than close listening enough to identify his argument because of all of the aforementioned you reading other things and stuff for the last 15 minutes and trying to
and I didn't even really go to the script because the script had it written down really well. I went to trying to apply his argument to the teleological argument and instead of just breaking it down. And yeah, I think you're right. Re-listening to it now, I really jumped the gun on it. I'm grasping for the philosophy here when I really should have maybe waited just a little bit longer. And then when I did articulate it, I didn't articulate it well at all. I'm not satisfied with the way I articulated that at all. Which is often a problem with me. Like anybody that's watched me knows that I do that sometimes. And I'm very disappointed because that was the argument that I had prepared for my opening statement, but it was focused on the teleological argument and not trying to apply this holographic principle to it.
Well, and on top of it, that teleological argument, you still have not gotten him to nail down a definition of God, so you still can't even apply that argument yet, because we still don't even know what his definition of God is.
Yeah,
like, we obviously...
And he's trying to stay away from the designer argument. He doesn't want his argument to be intelligent design, at least not in the way he's arguing right now.
So, like, when you go back to, if you went back to earlier when he said that, because, like, somebody said that's not it. I'm not sure if you're responding to me, Spartan Theology, when I said he said earlier that he argues that it necessitates a designer because we can map it mathematically. He said that almost word for word earlier in the debate. Like, Travis actually did say that as a response to one of Knox's questions. That is one of the few assertions that he has made so far that is not simply an explanation of one scientific theory or another without correlating it to how he keeps bringing it back to God. We have gotten very few actual like bits of connective tissue between this is all of the freaking science and God. Like, he keeps asserting therefore God. And so your ending bit there where you said you're asserting that it's God and then you're bringing up all of the science is true. That is what he's doing. He's given you very, very little outside of this is the science and I'm saying it's God. But the point that you brought up is not something that he has at any point said.
Yeah,
what
I agree.
He did say you did not address.
Yeah, I think I'm grasping right here, and it shows. So, yeah, this is why we're reviewing this debate. You live and you learn. I can't wait for the second debate. See if I can apply the lessons learned from this first one. It'll be an interesting discussion. Let's continue.
Well, a lot to cover there. No, I'm arguing this is the latest research in quantum gravity and quantum cognition and quantum decision theory that I'm making a deductive argument from. Now, if we want to get into the teleology, it's not part of my argument, but if I was to argue from it, I would say that, the constants like, the strong and weak nuclear force constants, the electromagnetic force constants, and all these would be analogous to uploading information into a disk to run a program. So all of that occurs after, independent and contingent upon the information processing. So I could actually, you say necessity, chance, or determinism. I can grant determinism and I can grant design. I mean, so I can go with either of those, because once the information is uploaded to run the program, you could look at it as being deterministic.
but it could be. So I think we're starting.
Now we're starting to finally get to like the meat of his argument here. He gave you the teleological thing here, but what's interesting though is he said I could grant determinism and I could grant design, but he's still arguing for the existence of a God. So what role, like at this point, my question to him would be, so what role are you arguing God played in the creation of the universe?
And he's starting to argue for simulation theory here. And we'll get into that later. He doesn't want to quite say it's simulation theory, but I think that he probably subscribes to simulation theory as well, if he subscribes to what he's saying in this debate. But yeah, I agree. He's giving me stuff to work with now. Let's see if I do anything with it. I'm not as positive that I will as I was before. So,
but again, like the moment he started making that statement, all right, now you got something to sink your teeth into. My question here is, okay, what role are you claiming that God played here? Because you're claiming that God exists and that a mind is essential for these things. Where is the essentialness of a mind here? You said that you can grant determinism. Okay, you're granting determinism. What role is God playing in any of this?
Yeah. All right. So let's see what I do. So many other things, though. It could be physics and chance working together. It could be it could be so many other possibilities. You're leaping to the conclusion that it's God, and you need to demonstrate that claim.
Right. Okay. So, and just to kind of finish on the fine tuning, if you will, that's my argument is not contingent upon that. And what I'm saying is that any kind of fine tuning we do get, it's
non sequitur
uploaded based upon the information and the entanglement. Now,
non sequitur.
Yeah.
Like right there, you should have latched onto that. That is non sequitur. I didn't ask you about to finish up your fine tuning argument. I asked you why you're leaping to the conclusion of God. Where does God play in this? And honestly, like, you know, I would have even asked further, define God for the purposes of our discussion.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I do, if it's in the debate, or if it gets honed out in the Q&A, but at some point he does say, I mean, he believes in a Christian God. So he at some point he clarifies that. And that definition, like I think I asked him, like, you believe in the traditional Christian God, the triple O God, and he quite clearly said yes. But I mean, we'll get to that if it's not in the Q&A. We'll see it. If it's in the Q&A, that'll be part 2 of our review of this. But the Q&A isn't even me. It's like 99% for Travis. So, yeah, if we even cover the Q&A. Well, let's continue.
What is your specific objection? Because I mentioned that studies in quantum cognition and decision theory show that the property of mind is information processing in an entangled state. The universe emerges from information processing in an entangled state. Therefore, the universe emerges from the property of what we call mind, and this mind is who we also call God. So,
okay,
I can't even respond to it, and I think that's what I'm about to tell him, Ellie, is I can't respond to it because I don't know the theory he's talking about. I hadn't looked at it, and I don't want to talk about something that I don't understand. But go ahead.
Well, and not only that, but again, like, even if he claims information processing of, like particles in an entangled state, like, he hasn't presented any evidence that that is the case. The actual, paper that he's presenting doesn't necessarily show that the entire universe emerges out of information processing in an entangled state. But still, we keep coming back to, he admitted earlier even if you were to only listen to just the explanations that he gave, he admitted earlier that the constants and such that allow for information processing in entangled states emerged during the expansionary period, which itself, the expansionary period is when the fundamental constants emerged, meaning we do not know if information processing in an entangled state is possible prior to the expansionary period. So even if you were to address him on the science right here, you could target him for that if you had been close listening. If not, though, he still has not defined God. He has defined a mind, but he has not defined God. He's claiming that quantum cognition necessitates a disembodied mind, but he has still not defined God. So
Yeah,
you're still you could still have, continue to state, you have still not defined a God or put his place in this discussion. You keep talking about all of these theories, and that's great. I'm glad you've been reading a lot of science, but I'm really curious what your definition of God is and what role you're claiming he's playing here.
Yeah, and I should have really. I hope I hammered down on that. We'll see if I do. But I think that's ultimately why I felt. Man, my phone is being insane. Let me turn off the sound. I think that's why I felt that essentially, like, despite a bad performance, I won the debate because the burden is on him to prove his claim that physics points to God, and I don't think that he did that. But I don't think it's because I did anything to win the debate. So like that's why I think that now, just watching this first half through, I'm assuming we're through the first half. We're at 20 minutes now. That watching it through, I don't think I can say really anybody won this debate. I think it was a learning experience that I'm now I got to look at these particular arguments, and I think round 2 is really going to determine whether anybody has won these debates or not. Maybe that could be just me wishful thinking, because this is a lot worse of a performance than I even had in the memory of my head, and I knew that I fucked up the first half of it. We're at the first half. It was a lot worse than I remembered it being. That was pretty fucking brutal. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, I told you I had a lot to say.
Oh yeah. Hopefully we can get through the rest of it in an hour. I really would like to watch a movie with my daughter tonight. I haven't spent much. We've been dealing with shit all day. I haven't spent no time with her. She hasn't complained yet, but I do need to spend some time with her. So let's try to get through this.
I mean, I have.
The universe comes from a property called mind, and that's what I was kind of getting to your definition of God. So you're proposing a very limited God, but
well, I mean, no, actually, see, if we want to get into Christianity, I'm a concordist, actually, so I can argue for that. But for this debate, does physics point to God? I'm just arguing for idealism. That's it, just idealism.
So pretty much what he's saying is his definition of God doesn't matter, because he's not arguing about his definition of God. He's just arguing his arguments to win a debate. I think that's what I took from that. I think I'm trying to hammer down on that definition of a God. We'll see if he actually goes to the Christian thing. Maybe I'm starting to rebound a little bit. Usually when it comes to discussions of God, I can find my feet. But I just don't even know, like, if I could just, if I at this point of the debate, from an honest perspective of watching it back again for the first time, I don't think that I could crush for the rest of this debate, 100% crush it and still say, hey, I won this debate here. This first 20 minutes has been that brutal. I just don't see how that could happen, and I don't think it will. So I think that my perception of this debate has been drastically changed, which is a good thing about doing these reviews. I think we should do it more often. Every time we go on Modern Day Debate, whoever it is, we'll take the time and actually break it down so we can look at our performance and learn from them.
Oh yeah, like when I do, if/when we can get like James to agree to things, assuming that I come out of the other end of this, like that, I would love to do this with the Matt Powell debate and stuff and let you rip my ass apart if I done make mistakes. Like, I think it's good to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. So let's continue, and hopefully we can get through the rest of the debate part. We will. Let's just try to be quicker. I'll try not to run my mouth so much and talk so much shit about Travis and talk more shit about me. It's hard for me to talk shit about me because I love myself so much. So we'll continue.
Because I mean, and as far as God,
I'm gonna grant you this holographic universe. Like that's totally cool. I'm looking at it now, and nowhere in this am I seeing that this is pointing towards some mind behind it. It's holographic principle. It's linked to string theory. All the things that you say. I'd really have to go into it, study the things about it. It seems really fascinating. Something like I would like to study. But again, I'm not seeing anything.
Okay, so
I need to know how you're getting to the conclusion of God, because it doesn't seem like you're providing any evidence that it would be some God behind this holographic universe. I think that there's a lot more evidence for string theory leading, combined with dark energy and multiverse theory, that there's probably actually billions of universes. And then you would then be talking about a God that is God of billions upon billions of universes. It gets harder and harder to believe. So I don't understand why you think that there has to be some kind of mind behind it. It could just be chance. It's the Big Bang. It's what happened. Where are you getting a God?
Okay, you done fucked up here again. All right, so you made a really good point and then shot yourself in the foot. You said, you're pointing at a God of billions upon billions of universes. It gets harder and harder to believe. All right, so there you go. You're arguing improbability. That's good. The point that you needed to make there at that point was you needed to get back to what is your definition of God. The title of this debate is, does physics point to God? In order to figure out if physics point to God, we need to know what your definition of God is. But the problem is you again gave him this big whole smorgasbord of things that he could pick from in that response.
Yeah. I think the biggest lesson is to really keep the questions down to a very minimum and just not ramble. I totally agree. When I was listening to that, I kind of felt like the same thing. I'm like, I'm nailing them. I've got them where I finally want them. We're into the realm that I want to be in, but I'm talking too much. I should have kept it short, concise, made my point, boom, respond.
Yeah, you're giving him way too much here. And yeah, I mean, sometimes you do need to say a bit in order to explain shit. I've done that with you several times here where I've given you background and examples and shit like that. But again, when you do that, you need to open or end with the most important points, preferably both. You want to start with a strong statement and end in a question. You want to keep the conversation in your control. Yeah,
agree. All right, we're going to continue to see what else I say. Hopefully it's not too much more. What is your evidence that these physics are pointing to that God?
Okay, again, quantum decision theory and quantum entanglement. I'm sorry, quantum cognition and quantum decision theory. Now, as far as string theory, and which I agree with, and you mentioned why would God create a multiverse and everything? One thing that we realize by string theory is that we exist in length, width, height, and time. Now, we can't think, feel, or imagine beyond length, width, height, or time. But in string theory alone, there are an additional 6 spatial dimensions. Now, imagine a being that transcends the space.
All right, so there, I need to look into that because in my research of it, it was just extra dimensions, unknown dimensions. I never seen where there was 6 of them.
Well, The Elegant Universe is a book that was written on it. That might be a good one to read if you want to really get into it. But yes, there are different versions of string theory. String theory is not one unified theory. There's a bunch of different versions of it. One of them proposes a number of other dimensions that are they're smaller than length, width, height, and time. Like they're wrapped upon themselves. But again, here's the problem. He deflected. He's off in a non sequitur again. But also, you asked the wrong question again. You asked him earlier to try to, where do you get God out of this? He tried to argue that those theories, when you take them together, point to God. Now, at this point, you need to define God. Because if he's claiming that those theories point to a God, you need to know what the definition of that God is in order to figure out whether those theories point to a God or not. So you asked him the same question twice, and although I'll argue that, he is jumping to conclusions, you didn't get him to define the deity that he's claiming that these arguments add up to. So at this point, he's still in a seat of power because with your rambling, you gave him a smorgasbord to run off into another non sequitur, and that's what he's done this entire day.
Yeah, I agree with you, and maybe should have tried to nail him down a little bit more. I think he's intentionally dodging answering that question because I've asked him quite clearly, like 4 or 5 times now, for him to define his God. and he keeps dodging his way around it. I think he understands that the moment he defines that the God he believes in is the Christian God, he knows his argument falls apart. That's why he quite clearly said he was arguing about idealism and not his particular God. And that's where I get into just, you know, that would literally be me like arguing for capitalism, even though I completely don't believe in capitalism, right? Like you're arguing for the existence of your God here. He didn't want to go there. And yeah, I think that I really should have hammered him home and try to get him to say it. I think we do eventually. We're probably getting there soon, maybe. But he didn't want to answer. He did not want to answer that question.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is you needed to pin him down on that, because again, you cannot have a discussion, and he knows this. That's why he keeps running off into these non sequiturs. You cannot, and I don't even know if he knows this cognizantly, if he knows this completely consciously, but you cannot have a discussion on something like this physics point to God without defining what physics you're talking about and defining what God is. Until you can agree on that definition, you can't have a discussion. And you still have not gotten him to do that. And unfortunately, the only strategy here at this point, in order to facilitate any kind of discussion whatsoever in an honest, as an honest interlocutor, would be to define his God at this point, so you guys can have a discussion about that definition.
Yeah, and he doesn't. Like I said, we might get there in the debate. I can't quite remember if it was debate or Q&A. Eventually, he does say, that, and I do nail him down on the Christian God in specific, the triple O. Classic definition of the Christian God. So yeah, he somehow is wrapped his brain around believing that this God is the God of this argument he's putting forth, which would be a holographic image projected by said God, maybe billions upon billions of times in different ways with different light. I mean, it's just a lot. I mean, this is about me, not about Travis, but like, this was the hardest thing for me to wrap my mind around is, you can't get to a Christian God with this argument. You just can't. I would love to hear him tell me how he does in that third conversation. The second conversation won't be about that. It'll be about these physics here. But that third conversation, man, we got to have that one. But let's continue.
Universe. So he would not be limited by space, not limited by time. So these, arguments would not affect a being if he's transcendent.
So in this holographic universe, the fundamental constants are why we're alive. Am I correct? Do you believe that this God wanted us to be alive? Is this universe our universe? Is this holographic universe? Is it our universe? Did God design this universe so we would be alive in this position right now?
Okay, so what's interesting with that is, we see that at the time of the Big Bang, the universe was uploaded with information like, I compare it to.
All right, so yeah, he doesn't want to answer again, but I think I do nail him down on this. Maybe I think he does answer this question. So let's
Travis
continue.
just popped into our side chat and said that's a total misrepresentation. This was on a generic God, which I defend as an immaterial mind. Travis, first off, a definition for a God, if you're only defining a God as an immaterial mind, then for all you know, you're a God, because you could be a brain in a jar. You have yourself labeled as a Christian. If you're going to have a debate, when it says, does physics point to God, it doesn't say, does physics point to a God? Does physics point to God? You need to define God. You cannot tell me that that's a straw man of your argument. That is a fundamental, defining a God is a fundamental part of having a debate. I'm sorry, dude, you're wrong there.
Well, yeah, and he's again saying that the topic was on a generic God, which I defined as an immaterial mind. No, the topic was on God, as Ali said. Your God is the Christian God, which you will eventually admit to. You have to explain to me how physics points to your God. God being your God. Physics pointing to some God that has no control of this world or gives a fuck if I masturbate. That's not the God I'm talking about. That's actually a God that I grant might be a fucking possibility. I don't believe in such a God, but I grant that if there is a God, he isn't a douchebag like your God. You need to show me that this God that physics points to is the douchebag you choose to believe in. And I hate to be harsh, but you're a Christian, dog. Either act like it, admit it, or maybe not claim to be one, because the Christians didn't like it either.
Well, because again, it says, does physics point to theism? You know, theism can be a lot of fucking things. You have yourself specifically labeled as a Christian, trying to claim, again, that for the topic of this debate, is it a generic God? If you're got yourself specifically being labeled as a fucking Christian for the purposes of the debate, and you don't outright say, I'm not arguing for my own God being this God, then you're arguing disingenuously.
Yeah,
like, that's the bottom line.
It's not a, like I said, that would be me arguing for capitalism as if I'm a capitalist when I'm not. That would be like, when James reached out to me about arguing for socialism. I'm like, I can do it, but I'm not a socialist.
We could have an argument about that all by itself, Knock, but then we'd be here all night.
Yeah, I mean, I might very well be a socialist by now anyway. So
yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that after Pig and I were done with you, you were.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain. Like, if I'm not a socialist, I'm like, man, you don't come closer. So, but let's continue with this. Don't let me get us sidetracked.
Like uploading information on a disk to run a program, but I mean, yeah, we dependent on the entanglement and information processing. Then we have like the strong and weak nuclear force constant, gravitational force constant, electromagnetic force constant, the ratio of electron to proton mass, ratio of protons to electrons, entropy level, the mass density, the age of the universe, the velocity of light, all the way down to the average distance between stars, which cannot be altered in order for us to be here. Yes. However, my argument is not dependent on that.
And again, it's always my argument is not dependent on that. However you attack me right now, my argument isn't dependent on that. Let's talk about something else. I win. And that's, I mean, that we get that through the whole debate as well. And that's just not how it works. I'm going to tear down your argument. You need to answer that and then not rely on your argument not being dependent on it. Like that doesn't even fucking matter. But I think that I have at this point really at least rebounded to the point to where I'm asking intelligible questions. And I think I'm starting to catch more of what he's saying. I don't know. We'll see. I think I'm getting a better feel of me at this point than I have this entire debate. So hopefully that will continue. Not that I'm where I need to be by any means. So let's continue right now, Ali. All right, so are we holographic?
Okay, so the more fundamental reality is the 2D information processing, okay? And it projects our universe as
that's the one question again.
Of that underlying 2D information processing.
Yeah, I don't like that question I just asked him. As I said, I think I'm listening to him now. I obviously didn't listen to anything he said because I didn't respond to anything he said.
Yeah, you have like repeatedly asked the wrong question over and over throughout this debate.
Yeah, I agree. I'm watching it back now. I think it's fairly apparent. And that's on me. And I think it's a good indication that no matter how much preparation you should do, I think rest is equally as important. Making sure you're resting and not too over prepared. I think and being over prepared is a thing.
Well, I don't think it's even just being over prepared is not a bad thing. What's important is mindfulness.
I don't think I was mentally awake as I should have been.
No, I think you were awake. I think your problem was not that you were tired. I think your problem was that you got thrown off and that you didn't expect it and that you
I definitely
had a hard time recovering from that.
All of that's true, and me being tired from research is no excuse. But I think that I crammed the research into too short of a time. So, instead of researching for 16 hours one day, 5 hours another day, a few hours another day, I should have spread that out more over time. So I think in accepting these debates with James, I just need to make sure I'm giving myself enough time to do the research spread out to where I'm not cramming it all in before the debate, so I can be as sharp as possible. Because I am, like, watching it back, I'm missing a lot of points, and I'm not going for the killer blow at least 3 times here that I've seen so far in this debate. And as soon as I think that I'm starting to get my feet underneath me and I'm starting to level the attacks at his arguments that I want to, then what just happened happens again. And you're completely right. Like I didn't ask the right question. I didn't address a single thing he just said. I just moved on to something else. Like I'm still trying to find my feet. And I think that's a credit to his debate style, honestly, because he was able to throw me off so much. He was able to use science and articulate it well and throw me off with science that even he just said was really new science that I just wasn't ready with. And it was, I think it was a really brilliant strategy from the beginning on his part. And I'm like, again, I have to give him credit for that.
Well, and your number one problem through this debate, again, has been mindfulness. You have not been present. You were reading, you were trying to recover from your feet, you were trying to find where in your notes you could debate his, the points that you thought he was going to make. It wasn't that you were over or under prepared at all. It wasn't even your knowledge base. It was the fact that you were not there. You weren't listening. You weren't paying attention. You were not picking apart. You were not present. You were not.
Yeah, I agree.
Mindful.
I think watching it back, it's fairly apparent, without a doubt. Yeah, I'm glad we're doing this. It's an eye opener.
I mean, and you can blame that on tiredness if you want. Like, tiredness is part of that, but I think a lot of it was psychological. I think that you put a lot of weight psychologically onto the outcome of this debate, particularly because I know that you put a lot of weight on modern day debate and on the platform size and on what it does for us. So you psyched yourself out that you had to perform well. And when you tied your sense of self-worth in that way so much to the outcome of this, when you got thrown for a loop, it hit you like a fucking jackhammer. And so you spent the last 20 minutes on screen recovering from that instead of paying attention to what was being said and, being present in the moment and dealing with the debate. Like, I know that sounds really mystical, but it's not. It's actually this is pure psychology. You got upended and you spent over 20 minutes trying to get yourself back to that point.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty apparent. And you're right. Like, as I spoke about, the experience was very well. Yeah, I put a lot of weight into it. Every time I go on Modern Day Debate, there's a lot of weight to each of those performances. It's introducing not just me, but our entire channel to a lot of new eyes that hadn't seen it before. So yeah, I do put a lot of weight into it, and I think you're right. By being tired, I'm not making excuses at all. It's really the nature of who I am. Ali has to tell me to go to sleep. I don't sleep like I should. I get OCD, and I think that's a fair analogy, based upon the experience going through the debate, especially just the way I was sweating. I was hot. I was scrambling for thought. I remembered that part very clearly. And I think it does come out when you watch it back. It does come out. Now, if you go look at the comments, I get a lot of good comments and I got a lot of good messages. But we play team sports. So a lot of that could just be that, so yeah, I think it was really good. I'm glad we're doing this because it is eye opening. And I know, going into this second debate,
was a psychological
some new
game.
things.
You lost on the grounds of psychology at the beginning. That's your problem.
Yeah, I think
it wasn't the argument you lost. It was you lost your mind there, and you can see how not present you are as you're observing this. There are so many things that you could have gone after that you have not.
Yeah, I agree. And it's really a wasted opportunity, honestly. One hopefully that I'll remedy in round 2. We both agree to it. Yeah, I'm glad we're doing this. It's the only way you're going to learn. So let's continue. 8:24. Holy shit. We're at 24 minutes, so I think we're screwed. All right.
So, in other words, with the entanglement, space, time, material, and everything is not fundamental.
Okay.
Information is fundamental.
All right. So, how do you account for the fact that the fine-tuning premise itself keeps getting proven wrong piece by piece? For example, the electroweak scale, I think I just heard you mention it a couple times, used to represent a classic example of fine-tuning, since slight deviations in its current value would abruptly halt the fusion. Here I'm reading right from my notes. You can tell it too. I don't. That's just. I shouldn't be doing that. I'm clearly scrambling here because I'm reading right from the notes instead of using the notes as a resource. I'm just pretty much verbatim reading from what I wrote. Let's finish. Let me do it. Of heavy elements and stars. I think you just mentioned that, right? But however, this premise also relies on the assumption that the electroweak scale is the only parameter one is allowed to adjust at a given time. If other parameters are allowed to vary simultaneously, then it's possible to demonstrate a whole slew of functional universes in the total absence of a weak nuclear force.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so obvious. I'm doing what I hate people doing to me, reading from a script right there. I prepared a script, but I thought I knew it well enough not to read from it. I thought I would use it as a resource, as a point of reference if I were to lose my thoughts. But here I'm clearly still scrambling because I read it right from there. And as I was doing it, I'm like, I'm reading, and that's terrible because I don't read well from scripts. This is why Film Crusade isn't out yet, because I'm so terrible at reading from scripts.
Yeah. I mean, again, like, we're back to you lost the psychological game, and that's the problem. Like, Travis is presenting with confidence. A lot of it's technically word salady. You know, you've had a few
he's showing
opportunities to go
authority.
after it.
He's showing
Yeah.
confidence in his argument, and I'm clearly scrambling.
Yeah, and you're not present, and you're not listening, and you're not engaging. Like, that's the big thing, is you are not engaging with his arguments. You are scrambling to try to find something to latch onto without actually listening to what is being said. And unfortunately, that's how you lose. Like, that is one of the best ways to fucking lose a debate, is to show that you're not engaging with what's being said.
Yeah, I think without a doubt, I've lost so far. Without a doubt, I think that I could probably hand this round one to Travis. I think you're right. He doesn't prove God with his physics, but he doesn't have to. He has authority in his arguments, and it's about the presentation and what the audience thinks. And even though it seemed like the audience was in favor of me, again, that's a lot of team sports involved. I think if you're looking at it objectively, so far, I mean, he's winning without a doubt. Like, and it's not even really close at this point. So let's continue. Let's try to get through it. Damn, yeah, I need this. It's a learning experience, but it's humbling, y'all. It's humbling.
Okay, so the strong and weak nuclear, that's actually part of the four fundamental forces. But if it was altered, then if it was any different than what we have now, let me ask you, would life be possible if the strong and weak nuclear forces, or the electromagnetic force constant, or the ratio of the electromagnetic force constant to the gravitational force constant, would we be able to exist?
I'm granting that. No. Of course it wouldn't. But I mean, if they were slightly altered, then we wouldn't be here to exist to be talking about it right now. So how do you explain the fundamental constants being formed in the inflationary period, being formed by the Big Bang itself? Or that most physicists would tell you that adjusting more than one fundamental constant at a time could still create our universe. The fundamental constants don't go all the way back to Planck time. Basically, the fundamental constants of our universe were brought into existence by the Big Bang. They didn't exist prior. There wasn't a state that existed during the inflationary period, the time period from the instantaneous beginning to the start of the actual Big Bang, where we can begin tracking with the information we have only after. They break down prior to that initial period. It's getting really painful for me to watch. So, like, even, wow, Ronnie, even,
yeah, you didn't pay attention to him talking about the fundamental constants. You just heard the keyword and you were like, oh, nope, I can go on from here. You weren't listening to the point he was making.
Yeah, sorry, my daughter's being super loud.
In fact, you didn't even let him get to the point he was making. Like, you cut him off and started rambling at him, and like that's why he's got that smug look on his face right there, because he knew that's where you were.
Oh yeah, he's pretty happy with what's going on right now. I mean, wow, just a really, really bad performance, and you're right. He threw me off from the beginning, and I don't recover. And watching it back, it's fairly obvious up to this point.
We can just keep really going, bad. But like right there again, like you heard a keyword. You did what Darth Dawkins likes to do, honestly. And I'm not going to compare you to him because he's a jackass, but like I'm going to say that this is something that he does. He'll hear a keyword and start arguing with the keyword instead of you. Like
Yeah.
Matt Powell does the same thing, and that's what you did here.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was really painful for me to listen to that and realize that that's me. All right, so we're going to continue. In other words, they're not set. Current cosmological theory states that quantum fluctuations during the inflationary period created the constants we now know the universe operates under. They're not an inherent part of the universe, or rather, they're only a part of our local universe or the space-time we're able to observe. So, I mean, they're not like fundamental to the existence of this universe, and they can be tweaked. If you're tweaking both of those constants or several constants at the same time, you can tweak them and even come up with our universe.
Okay, so I would agree with you that they're not fundamental. Now, as far as like tweaking them and probably still getting to life, I would actually have to look. That sounds like really speculation, but never.
That's like the first time I got him right there. Because as far as I know, right? I mean, he's wrong about that.
I mean, he's right that it's technically speculation, but the math bears it out.
Well, I mean, but everything. So, I mean, that was his argument about string theory, and he's now using string theory. String theory is speculation. Multiverse theory is speculation. Holographic principle is speculation. So, yeah, I mean, I got him right there. That's the one point that I think I've scored this entire debate.
Yeah, like the fact that, those ideas that those fundamental constants could be tweaked more than once, like the math does bear that out. The more than one fundamental constant could be tweaked at the same time and still end up with a universe remarkably similar to ours.
Sorry, I had to step away and close my door. I'm like, oh, it's cold in here.
So yeah, you can claim that it's speculation, but I mean, technically, again, all of this is theoretical math. Every concept that he has talked about so far has been theoretical math as well. None of these things are testable. Like, none of them.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just now looking at the chat, guys. I have not looked at the chat hardly at all. So Ali's always better at looking at the chat than I am. I don't mean to ignore anything. If I do see something that I should respond to, I'll put something in the comments when it's done. Yeah, I'm not trying to insult.
I've been watching the chat. Travis tried to come in and say he was arguing for a generic god. I don't know what the fuck a generic god is. Like, you'd need to define that. Because, I have a very specific definition of what a god is, and a disembodied mind is only one piece of that.
Yeah, what is a generic god?
If you're going to argue for the existence of any god of any kind, you still need a definition for deity. You can't just say generic god and expect that somehow stands in for a functional philosophical definition. Like, dude, if you're trying to argue from science, you can't even start talking about life without defining life. Like, you're claiming this is a scientific debate, and yet you're still not even defining one of the fundamental terms.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to give myself a point there. And I don't think that I'm like reaching for it either, because I think that, that's one of the points that we had talked about going into nailing him with. And he clearly doesn't understand the science behind it. And I think I got him there.
Well, yeah, him claiming, okay, that's theoretical. All right, that's the first place where, you've got him a little bit off. Like, he's saying, I think that's purely theoretical. You should have nailed him on that. Well, everything we're talking about is theoretical. Every, string theory is theoretical. The shit that you're talking about is theoretical. None of this.
Well, I haven't responded yet, so let's see what I see. What I say.
Nevertheless, I could actually grant that, because I'm going back before the Planck time, and with quantum gravity, and that our universe emerges from quantum entanglement.
Citation needed.
So my argument precedes that.
So again, what makes your argument better than multiverse theory? All right. So yeah, I asked the wrong question.
Again.
Yeah. Again. Let's continue it.
I cannot, because I can grant a multiverse, because a multiverse itself would be contingent and emergent from the entanglement and information.
And I can grant a holographic universe. I mean, it's actually I actually can't wait for my after show to be over so I can go and research it, because this really didn't come up in any of my research for this debate. This is fascinating. I'm not lying. So I still haven't. I mean, you've given me a lot of fancy words about how it's God, or how you would come to the conclusion that it's God. Why? Like, he totally just made a claim there that he knows what happened pre-Planck time, and I know better than that. I think I do actually hammer him on that at some point, but it's probably Q&A. I do not know why I asked the wrong question there, because I knew the information to really hammer home a point that he just made. And I think I'm still showing that I'm clearly reeling. I'm talking about just how he blew me away with his argument here.
Like, we literally
Yeah.
cannot know anything before plank time because we don't have a way to, like, figure that out. Like, there's no way to test it. We can't observe anything pre-plank
Yeah,
time.
and
That's the
I
whole
don't
point of
call
plank
him
time.
on that at all right here. Now, I think I do later, but that's during Q&A, I believe. I don't do that right here, and I know that. Like, that's one of the things that we did look at. So that's just
So that still shows that you
foolishness.
are still not present in that moment. You're still not engaging with what's being said. You're still trying to find something within your arguments that
Yeah.
you prepared that you can nail them on.
Yeah, so much worse than I had remembered. Yeah, so much worse. Let's continue. Couldn't it just be chance still, even with your holographic model? You say that because, the universe says we must have this mind. I've never seen that. I don't think, I think that, again, that goes to a teleological argument to where you're leaping to a conclusion, trying to justify and apologize for your Christian God. You're making the claim here that physics points to God. Now, God being, for most Christians, an all-powerful God. I understand that you don't hold to that perception, but clearly you can see that you're portraying a God very limited, if
Doc,
it's
pause
even
it.
one universe.
All right, you did it again. You rambled. You made a very good point, and you could have stopped.
Yeah, I
And then
think
you
this.
defined God for him.
Well, no, I think this is where he is going to admit to it, though.
Yeah, I know, but again, you rambled again.
Yeah, I do that this whole debate, it seems. But I think that this is where he actually admits to being a Christian. Let's see. If it's just even one universe, it's a very limited God, confined to the physical restrictions of this one universe. If you're talking about billions of universes, you're talking about a God restricted by billions of different physical limits to those universes, different limits. The theory is that all of those universes would be different than our own and have their own physics to them.
That's right. Now, like I said, okay, so
Nope, it's not right here. What the fuck? So that's a whole lot of more word salad on my part. I call it out when Travis or other opponents do it. That's what I gave, is a bunch of word salad.
Yeah, you not only gave a bunch of word salad, but again, you made a good point and you buried it in the middle again.
I agree. Not sure, like, God damn it, my recollection of this debate was far different. Never trust your memory, especially if you're 42 years old and smoke a lot of weed. All right, very humbling. Let's continue.
God would be the source behind, or the mind behind which, the entanglement and information processing occurs, right? Okay, so any multiverse, like it's many multiverses, and the space and time.
So your argument is, even if it's chance, then that's God? I mean, is that your argument? Even if it's chance, if it was just chance, or if it was determinism, it's still some mind behind it all. And you can see behind all these billions of universes, and because I'm still actually reading this paper. I'd have to probably read a lot of papers, I'm sure, and I'm definitely not a physicist, so it would take some time to understand this principle. But I mean, I'm not seeing anything here pointing to a mind behind it all.
Okay, so I need to go back and address the one point about, that it would be a limited God, unpowerful, because if it's confined within, the parameters of the universe or the parameters of a multiverse. But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that God is transcendent. So he is both within and transcendent of reality. So he's not limited by the physics. And as far as teleological, my argument is that God works.
All right, so there's two things here. First off, we're back to you keep telling him what he's saying rather than hearing what he's saying. Right? There's twice here now that you have given him his argument for him rather than letting him answer the questions and then finding the mistakes in his words. But second, if you had been paying attention, he just contradicted himself right there. Because earlier in the debate, he argued that a God could function within the laws of physics. Now he is arguing that God somehow functions within the laws of physics and is somehow beyond and outside of them. And those two things are a logical contradiction that you could have nailed down right then and there, the second he said it. This is one of the few places where I would have cut somebody off in a debate to point that out.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I seem to have missed a lot of things that he was saying. And usually when I'm talking to Christians, especially, I'm trying to hear what they're saying. I think it is that he threw me off with his argument. I was looking at the holographic principle. I don't think that I was still looking at it in this point of the debate, like I seem to say right there. I probably still had it on my screen, but I don't think I was still looking at it. But I think I'm clearly thrown off, and I don't think that I recovered like I remembered recovering.
Well, right there, it's clear, like, to me, again, psychologically, here's what I'm seeing in your mind right now, and tell me if I'm fucking wrong, but try to put yourself back in that position. What are you doing? You're trying to take back control of the discussion. You are telling him what he's saying rather than asking or listening. You're cutting him off. You are, like, trying to get him to admit to the argument you expected him to say rather than engaging with the one that's in front of you. And then when he turns around and he starts talking about something that's on slightly more familiar territory, this idea of the limited God or not, you let him redirect instead of continuing on the path you're on. The biggest problem here is that in attempting to control the discussion, at no point were you actually fully a part of that discussion, so you couldn't actually control it. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, I think that's completely right. I think that right there, you do see that for me. I'm trying to do what I do here. I'm trying to control the conversation. I want him to get into the conversation that I thought I was going to have coming into this debate. He flipped that argument on its head. So he is making a completely different argument than the argument I was prepared for. I still think that it's still the same theological argument, but it's presented in such a different way that it totally threw me off of my expectations. And yeah, I'm clearly trying to grasp to get that control back in some way or another. And he just keeps going back to what he's familiar with, which is, probably a script based upon science molded around this theological argument that he has.
Well, and here, this argument that he's about to give you about transcendentalism, like, if you actually dig into this and, actually listen to what he's saying here, have a good one, Leia.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming by, Leia. We don't usually stream this long.
Yeah, we normally don't, but we promised that we were going to take as long as we could. I'm diagnosed positive with COVID. We don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to stream. I'm not saying, I'm going to die, but at least for maybe the next 2 weeks, if my husband's anyone to go by, I may not be able to even be online all that much. We don't know yet. But coming back to this, right here, he's starting to throw you a bone. That is a logical inconsistency. This idea of a God that is both inside and outside of the universe, that is bound by the laws of physics and yet not. That's a discussion you could start to have. And he's giving this to you. He is handing this to you. You have fucked up so many times. And here he is coming back himself to it because he could not resist. That's his Christian sensibilities kicking in. I want to hear, because this is part of the debate I didn't get to watch. I want to hear where you go with this. Because honestly, this is your gift right here. This is your chance that if you want to get your feet back under you, you're going to do it here.
Yeah, so let's see where I go. I'm not too confident I do, Ali, at this point, but let's watch.
Through the natural laws of physics, not within them, some of the intelligent design proponents would say that, God acts, within the laws of physics. I'm saying that he acts through, by what we have as the laws of physics. So, it doesn't limit God. It's not a God of the gaps. It's none of that.
Was this universe created for us? I might have asked you that before. I'm just going to ask you once again.
Nope.
Yes.
The very notion of a deliberately engineered universe is absurd when less than 1 part and 10 to the 50th of the end product is capable of supporting the very thing it was designed for by your own admission, life. We cannot exist in most of the universe.
Right. And like I said, with my argument for why the universe was made for us, I compared to, reality is an information construct. And we see that at the time of the Big Bang, about 13.79 billion years ago, the universe was
non sequitur.
Yeah, he's not answering the question at all. Let's let him finish, because I can't quite remember how he finishes his answer here.
Information, the precision and strong weak nuclear force constants and the gravitational force constants, entropy level, all these different factors that it's not just like a matter of chance or, because it's the actual the mechanistic function. So like chance or probability alone won't get you there. It's in fact, it's not even improbability. It's the mechanistic function that and it correlates to for like one outcome. So
2 points for me at this point, I think, because he did not answer that at all. Like, what did he even just say?
It was a bunch of word salad, but I believe what he was trying to put out there was effectively a similar argument to fine tuning. Like, if you want to restart it and let him play again, I can try to process it. The problem is what it sounded like was he threw out two different concepts and tried to explain them as though they were the same. But again, I'm not sure if I quite understood what he was saying. So go ahead and back that up about a minute and a half and replay it so I can see if I can actually process what he said.
All right.
Universe was made for us. I compared to, reality is an information construct. And we see that at the time of the Big Bang, about 13.79 billion years ago, the universe was uploaded with the information the precision and strong weak nuclear force.
I'm not exactly sure. I'm not sure how far I went back. So hopefully I didn't go back too far.
Constants and the gravitational force constants, entropy level, all these different factors that it's not just like a matter of chance or, because it's the actual the mechanistic function. So like chance or probability alone won't get you there. In fact, it's not even improbability. It's the mechanistic function that and it correlates to.
Okay, he doesn't understand what he's saying, but I just figured out what he was trying to say. All right, so at the beginning, he made an actual argument, but again, this is the problem. I had to listen to that back. If I was in that debate, I would have been just confused. Okay, can you repeat that in 2 sentences instead of 15? Because I'm not sure if you know what you're saying. What he said at the beginning was the universe was uploaded, implying that we're simulation. All right, so you got your simulation theory there with those constants. He said earlier in the debate that they came into being during the expansionary period, but now he's trying to claim that they could not have been the result of chance, even though, the string theories that he's claiming underlie all of these other principles that he is arguing, state themselves that our fundamental constants are the result of quantum fluctuations, also known as chance.
Yeah.
He argued against himself, and now he's trying to argue for something else. So I don't even think he understands what he's saying, because he's bringing a bunch of concepts together and saying a bunch of scientific-sounding jargon, but he doesn't seem to understand what he's actually explaining here.
Yeah, I think I was able to get him that right there. Hopefully I can continue with that. Hopefully I'll hammer him on that. I'm not too confident I will. And he did put an explanation in the chat that I did throw on the screen for viewers. So let's see if I hammer him down.
So yeah.
So I mean, again, if everything was designed for us, right, and this universe, this world, I mean, it doesn't really even seem like the world is designed for us. Why are there earthquakes that not only kill us but destroy our towns and cities? Tornadoes, hurricanes, tsunamis. Why wouldn't we have more water that's drinkable? Why is UV radiation harmful to us? The very star that was finely tuned to make us exist can give us cancer and kill us. Why can't we live in space? There's so much universe out there. You just admitted that this universe is designed for us, and yet we're stuck here on this planet. We can't live in space. I don't understand how you could even come to the conclusion that this universe will be designed for us under the model that you would even be speaking of, string theory, multiverse theory. So I hammer it home, but again, I'm just rambling too long. I should make him answer right then and there.
Yeah, not only do you ramble too long here, but also, I remember, this is another part that I got to pay attention to. I remember his response was, well, I never said that, God wanted to make it comfortable for us, which does debunk some of what you're saying there.
Well, yeah. When it comes to the world not being designed for us, but he never answers, the vastness of the universe and how minuscule this world is and how that could be designed for us. I mean, it is a good rebuttal to the argument, that one that I think I let him get away with because I don't think I respond to it. It's easy to really get into that argument, and maybe I probably should have focused on that because that's one that I could easily win if given enough time to do so. But yeah, I think that it is a good debunk of, well, this world doesn't have to be designed for us because God doesn't want us to be comfortable. It's a trial, but it doesn't get into just how infinitely small this world is on the grand scale of the universe, and then explain how this universe is designed for us.
Well, yeah, and he said this universe is designed for us. You didn't ask if it was designed for life, which is what he's going to argue later. You asked if it was designed for us.
Yeah, and I do know that I don't think I hammer home well, maybe I do. I think I actually do make my point about the universe being more designed more for black holes than us. I think I do actually make that point. Let's see if I do. Life is an afterthought. It's a cosmic afterthought. It's not significant at all.
So Travis, I know you got a Travis. I know you got a bullet in the chamber, as James would say. But let me just say to everybody that's listening right now, if you have any questions, just tag me at Converse Contender in the side chat, and I will take down your question to read here at the end. And if there's any, if you guys want to shoot over a super chat as well, feel free. I'll push all those to the front of the list. All right, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So, okay, like with earthquakes, hurricanes, even, bacteria and viruses, we could not be here without having them and not having them and having them to the degree that we have them. Like even viruses, you look at viruses, I mean, they regulate bacteria that make bacteria useful for us. They actually control precipitation
needed.
Marine life.
Yeah. I'm not a biologist, so I'm not going to comment too much on it. I would just need citation just because I don't know whether he's right or not.
Citation needed, but again, we're back to he never defined God. So
yeah, he's dodging the question, I think he does answer it.
Well, when he claims for that transcendent God, though, if that God is transcendent, he's not bound by the laws of physics. Okay. Then why would all of these things be needed? You did not define what his power, how his power functions effectively. And
the overall point of my argument is, because his argument is literally all this is because of God. Well, if God's power is infinite, and if he's not limited by the physical constraints of this universe, then oh man, I just lost my thought mid thought there. That's happening a lot lately.
Well, here's the
shit. How did that happen? Like just mid thought like that? Fuck.
Well, here's where I'm at though. He argued for this transcendent God earlier. Okay, fine. But here's the problem. If the only definition that you are giving right now, and I'm going to address the thing you said in the side chat earlier, if the only definition of God that you are giving is that they are a mind, can a mind do anything? What can your God do? That needs to be a part of the definition of your God. Like, even when I provide definitions of my gods for the purposes of discussion, like, generally, whether or not the universe was created by them doesn't come into it because that's not a part of my definition. Right?
Yeah, that was my point. It's because of God. Like, we wouldn't be limited. We could do all of those things. So we wouldn't need bacteria to, like, so he could just fix that problem, and then we'd have another universal constant.
Well, yeah, and that's the point. Like, that's the point here, is that because so far the only definition that Travis has conceded, he talks about the transcendent, but he doesn't define, okay, so you're saying that your God is a mind. All right, we got that. We got that you're defining your God as a disembodied mind. Yay, good for you. What can your God do? Like, that needs to be a part of your definition of your God. Because in this case right now, and again, this is one theist to another who is saying this to you, like, you still have not locked him down, Knock, on that. He claimed this whole transcendent both, outside of the bounds of the universe. But earlier in the debate, he also said that God works within, like, the confines of the universe. If he's not bound to it, then why would he work within it? Like, you start to get all of these contradictions that could easily have been pointed out. But instead, we're now on a ramble about biology.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still rambling a little
Your
bit.
not being present has allowed you to miss so many important things just in
Yeah,
these first 30
I
minutes.
agree. I'm really looking forward to the second conversation. Travis is going to be preparing based on this review, I'm sure. But yeah, that's all in good fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to try to definitely be more in the moment and more aware of what's going on around me. I think that's like debate 101. I allowed that. I honestly, the other debate that I've lost, I allowed pretty much the same thing to happen. Matt Powell came in and surprised me, and I got dead set on where I was going to go. It was a different circumstance, different situation altogether. I'm actually proud of that performance with Matt because I did what I wanted to do, but it was that same mind fuck at the beginning that it's not what I thought it was going to be. So yeah, I totally agree. So much that I missed here, and it's very easy to see it. Watching it back in the moment, it was just a lot of grasping at straws until I started finding stuff that hit. We'll see how it continues. I think we might be getting close to the end of the actual debate.
I mean, it's what I would say that the laws of physics are fine-tuned for is for billions of human beings to be here for a short amount of time with an offer of redemption. I think it's very fallacious to assume that God made this universe for our personal comfort. No, it's knowing, what was going to happen with us. I would argue he made it, we're here for a short amount of time with an offer of redemption. But nevertheless, that's my argument is not contingent upon that.
His argument is never contingent upon that. And you notice how he included the universe in his justification of why the world's fucked up. It does not explain why we can't exist in the vast majority of the space that God created for us, which was the original point of the question, was it not? It was not for life, for us human beings here on this planet. I clarified that. He did not explain that. He just explained, well, the planet doesn't have to be comfortable.
Well, yeah, and again, that's a good rebuttal to the ramble that you gave, and that's the problem with your ramble, because he responded to your ramble and not to your point.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely round two, I got to keep it short and concise and not allow myself to fucking go on tangents. All right, let's continue.
Upon the fine tuning, but I mean, I would certainly defend it, but.
So if you adhere to multiverse theory, like you believe that it's at least possible, and again, I'm completely thrown off here. You derailed my strategy. I'm gonna give you credit, like right from the very get, because I literally saw you dismiss string theory, multiverse theory. A lot of the stuff you're talking about now, I literally saw you dismiss all of this as speculative. I did, but that's not the point. Good.
Okay, I encourage you to watch my last debate.
All right, so there he denies it, but I did play for it. Maybe he just maybe he just doesn't remember saying that at the beginning of that T-Jump debate. But he did say clearly that string theory was speculative and shouldn't be considered as part of that discussion.
Yeah, well, no, I think what he said earlier when, in his first debate, you're right. Like the first one that we saw where he was.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but this is also, again, you're now changing the subject again because you didn't know how to respond to him. Like, it's clear that you didn't understand how you were supposed to respond to him in that moment, so you changed the subject again. You keep handing him power over and over in this debate.
Oh yeah, it's horrendous.
You're jumping from topic to topic to topic because you're not actually engaging with the things you're saying. You're trying to find an opening to attack him through the avenues rather than engaging with what's being said.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. But I think, right there, right there, I think I suspected that the debate was coming to a close, and I'm still clearly reeling. And I think blurted out truth. I think it just came out of me because I was just like, yeah, I think you're right that I didn't know how to respond, but I haven't really known how to respond the whole debate, and I think it just kind of blurted out of me right there, and I gave an admission that I probably shouldn't have given. But yeah, I'm clearly not listening to him either. So yeah, it's just a bad performance all around. I'm hoping we're almost done with it because I don't want to go too much longer. I've really got to spend some time with my kid. So let's try to finish this up.
And then the debate with Tom was specifically, I didn't get a chance. I was doing the fine tuning. We got locked into a position. So no, I have never said that I deny string theory.
This is fine. This is fascinating. But you did admit that the universe was made for us to be here in this moment. Again, the weak anthropic principle it states that the universe must have certain properties because otherwise our own existence would not be possible. In other words, of course, there are constants or else we wouldn't be here to observe them.
Right. It's a fancy way of philosophically, they use this argument. It's called the puddle analogy. Like, we can only, of course, it's fine tuned for us because we're here. Otherwise, we couldn't observe it. And, have you heard of the firing squad analogy?
Yes. That's part that we watched the firing squad analogy and part of our preparation for this debate.
Mm-hmm.
It's just funny. I'm really hoping we can finish the debate. We might not be able to. I don't know how much longer it's going to go for the regular debate, and I've got to spend some time with my daughter. So hopefully we can finish it, guys. If not, I think we've got the point. That I definitely need to be more attentive, and I definitely don't need to let my interlocutors throw me off from the get. Stick to the strategy, stick to the game plan, make my arguments and make him answer them. And then I would have been more comfortable.
Well, and it wasn't even a matter of stick to your game plan. Like in this case, part of your game plan would not have worked, but the big thing is be adaptable and be willing to engage with what is being said, not what you expect to be said.
Yeah. Be prepared for every argument.
Well, it's not even just be prepared for every argument. It's listen to what is actually being said and try to use your logical mind. If it's not something that you've prepared for, listen to it and try to find the places where you can target it. Travis is up in our comment section claiming that, none of my objections are valid, but at the same time, all of the objections that I put forward, he's yet to have answered any of them, like at all. And that's the thing. You would have had that same thing in this debate. If you would have asked targeted questions, listening to the things that he was saying, if you were to parse his word salad by being present, you would have been able to find those places where you could steer the conversation. But instead, you ended up being steered yourself.
Yeah, let's finish this. Yes, I have, yeah.
Okay, so, that's philosophical, but I think the firing squad analogy.
Well, your argument is essentially it's an argument. It's steeped in philosophy. It's teleology. You try to run away from that. It's clear. It's fine. You have evolved your argument. I'm giving you credit here. I'm quite impressed, honestly. But I still don't see. I don't see how you have shown. You've shown a clear knowledge for current physics, for astronomical thinking that's going on in the world right now. None of it's pointing to God. You can find individual businesses, but none of it's actually pointing to God. Their conclusions aren't God. So you still need to prove that it's God, that this is pointing to God and not billions of universes, not just chance, not determinism, that it's God, that it's a mind, it's a disembodied mind.
Right. And, like I've said, and I'll go ahead and repeat it. This is going to be the last time though. All right, studies in quantum cognition and quantum
you can keep repeating definitions. That doesn't prove God.
Okay, you can't prove anything in physics, especially theoretical physics.
It doesn't. It's not pointing.
Listen, does it point towards God? And my argument is that it points towards God because the universe emerges from the same properties that we're studying. That's in mind, in quantum mind theory.
No, it's a leap of a conclusion. It's a teleological. I can't speak right now, but it's a philosophical argument that you're failing at. You're leaping to a conclusion. I'm grand. All right, so yeah, I think I'm just gotta be done, or we gotta wrap it up. My daughter is looking at me, and it's time for her nighttime shot. And I haven't spent hardly, outside of our walk earlier, I haven't spent any time with her. She's been in her room doing her thing, but now she's out. She wants to spend time, and I've got to give it to her. So we need to wrap up, give final thoughts of this, which I think we've been pretty apparent throughout it.
Yeah, here is actually where you were starting to, get to the point where you were having a conversation with him, I think. You were saying you can keep repeating these definitions, but where does it point to God? Again, you still need to get him to define a hard definition for this so called generic God that he keeps bringing up in our side chat. Now he's claiming in the side chat he works by controlling and creating the laws of physics, but earlier in the debate and earlier in our side chat he also claimed that that we could not exist within the universe without all of that blank space. Well, if God creates the laws of physics, then that means that God could create a universe in which we could exist without all that blank space. So, Ben, we're now dealing with a God that we're getting ascribed to the power to create the laws of physics. All right, well, we can now have a conversation about that. But the problem is, again, his entire argument is his entire debate tactic is word salad that is meant to confuse.
Yeah, well, and yeah, I agree. I agree, and I think that you're exactly right with the whole psychological analysis. I was thrown off. I allowed myself to be thrown off. Usually, when I debate people, the times that I really do well, I'm usually debating a fundamental Christian on theology or morality. And so, like, I stepped into this debate because it's a subject that I'm interested in. I didn't know who Travis was at the time. I tried to do my research on it. But I think you're right. I stepped into a debate I wasn't quite ready for. And then when I got thrown off from the beginning because I wasn't ready for it, my brain kind of went into panic mode. And instead of listening to what my opponent was saying, I was trying to dictate the conversation and then trying to find some kind of ground to walk on. And I just never did. And so I think going into round two, I really it's not so much about preparation. Sure, I need to know these individual theories and principles that he's talking about in this particular argument. But the main thing is going to be focus on the argument, understand where he's going with his arguments, so I can actually understand how to respond to them, and not put so much weight on it. Understand that this is what's offered. We said that we would come back and I would study these principles and I would study his explanation about how it went to God. I've now studied my failures here in this first debate. So I think in the second debate that I'll be able to really come out and maybe have a conversation about this with Travis that is more two-way and a better conversation than what we watched here tonight.
Yeah, and I think, again, even if you don't have a thorough understanding of the concepts that are being presented, right? Like, this is just my experience as somebody who is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think holographic principle is so important. I'm fascinated about it. I'm going to research it. But you break down everything that he's given me here in this debate about what leads him to that God point. Because I don't want the second conversation to be about even his definition of God, just about the physics that he claims is going to lead him to God, and whatever. Maybe we can try to get that definition down. Maybe that'll be a strategy. But I don't think that's, I mean, he's literally saying that he's arguing for a generic God, so not his God. I would love to nail down that definition, because I think you're right. I think that's very important for a conversation like this. But my focus research-wise will be on the physics he offered that pointed to God. I need to understand that so I can understand his conclusions and how he got there and rebut them.
Well, and I'm saying that even if you end up in a position like this where you're ill-prepared, right? Like let's say you walked into this and you didn't understand most of the concepts that he's talking about, right? But here's two things that you do know. The first is that if this somehow proved God, it would be all over every newspaper ever, and the Christians would never shut up about it. And number two, you can understand that by close listening, if the interlocutor understands their explanations, if they understand the theories that they are putting forward, you can ask them targeted questions about explaining those theories. And if they can explain those theories in a way that is coherent to the lay observer, chances are they probably understand the theory that they're talking about. If they can't, and they keep just throwing out terms without defining them, then at that point, you now have a different conversation. But you can also listen listen to the arguments that they are presenting. You can listen to their explanations, and you can find their logical reasoning. Because again, this debate, as much as Travis wanted it to be about the science, he kept making it about the science. He kept saying it was, and you let him control the conversation. But the truth is, the arguments was, do physics point to theism? And you kept trying to nail him on his logical line and on the definitions of the theism, but again, like, does it point to a god? Well, you have to define that god first before you can say whether or not it points to any sort of theism at all. Like, does it point to a god that just, like, floats around and exists and does nothing? Does it point to the demiurge? Does it point to the Christian god? Does it point to one of the Hellenistic gods? Like, what does it point to? And so, like, he keeps trying to claim generic god, blah, 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 but that also shows that he was not prepared for the philosophical side of the argument. And so, even if you didn't understand a single bit about that science, if your interlocutor is honest and he understands it, you asking targeted questions about those concepts and about his reasoning and continuing to press on those things despite the word salad and continuing to remain calm and confident.
Now you're giving
attention
away
to
our
the things that were
strategy.
said.
You should
That is
save
how you
that
can
for
do
our
that.
strategy session so Travis doesn't have that.
I'm not saying that. This is a basic debate tactic.
Oh, I know.
thing.
I'm totally joking with you right now. It's I'm really actually glad that Travis was here, and I think you're right. I think that the definition of the God that he's putting forth should be defined. So Travis, there you go. We'll define that right from the beginning, and then we'll go from there.
But I'm saying that
Yeah.
It's not even about being over or underprepared. It's about the fact that even if you are underprepared, there are ways to still engage honestly.
I think I definitely put too much stock in preparing, Ali. I think that I knew too much information that I just didn't end up using or needing. Put too much pressure on myself, just like you said. It even coming out of the debate, I knew it was bad, but I thought I won it. Looking at the debate, I got to give this first round to Travis without even watching the rest of it yet. He did take a beating in Q&A, as I remember, but I think I have to. Being honest about it, I think that watching it back, I think I got a couple points maybe, but I think he won it without a doubt. And I'll learn from it, and we'll talk about different strategies going in. You'll help me with the preparation I do when it comes to the science. But yeah, maybe we'll have time actually, and we'll do a couple rounds like you kept trying to get me to do all day. But I'm like, nope, I'm going to keep researching, role playing and stuff like that. Get what most people do in preparation for debates.
Yeah, because again, it's not about like predicting the arguments per se. There's a little bit of that if you know that, say, your interlocutor is somebody who uses a script. Like, if I prepare for debates against particular people, when I go back and I watch their debates, I take a look at what sort of tactics they use. If somebody is a presuppositionalist and they stick to a script, then yeah, preparing for that script is a good idea. But if at the beginning of that debate what you've done is you prepared for a script and they throw you the fuck off because they're using either a different script or a completely different set of things, all right, fine. Grant them intellectual honesty. Maybe they've shifted their position. Pay attention to what's being said and respond in real time to what you're hearing. Use your logical thought and try to find the weaknesses in their arguments, or at the very least, give them enough rope to hang themselves. Get them to be the ones who ramble out things that then you get to respond to. Because the problem that you had was that you were so desperately trying to control that argument and tell him what he thought that you gave him ample opportunity to hide whatever it was that he actually believed or understood in piles and piles of words. You gave him the debate because you rambled.
Yeah, and that's clear. Like, man, just watching it back, it's like I'd be watching myself, and I'm like, shut up, shut up, just shut up right now. That was very humbling. And again, Ali did exactly what I asked her to do: come in and break this thing down and dissect it. I wanted it to be more focused on me than Travis. I think that overall we did that. So I'm very happy with it. Hopefully, Travis, you're not too offended by some of our opinions of your performance, because overall, I think that you did win this round one. I'm looking forward to round two. And I think is the new Aladdin movie any good? I think that's what I'm going to watch with my daughter. We're going to watch the new Aladdin movie. We haven't watched it yet.
Everything I've heard about it is that it's meh. Like, it's not absolutely awful, but it's not good either.
Yeah, I don't want it to be like just a real life version of the cartoon. That would kind of really be disappointing.
I mean, that's basically what I was told it is, and also Will Smith is not nearly as good as Robin Williams, because who the fuck could be?
Yeah, who could be? Yeah, maybe not Aladdin. I'll find something else. I'll get on Hulu and see what we can find. But I'm gonna
Okay.
watch a movie with her. So let's get out of here. Any last words?
My last words are to Travis. Travis says, incorrect. I gave clear definitions. You can't just say something's word salad and dismissive. You have to address the arguments. I mean, if you go back and watch it, the few times that I did actually address your arguments, I did. I pointed out logical inconsistencies in the exact words you said, but this was not about you. We said that several times. I am pointing out where Knock done fucked up because there are problems in the things that you said, and he didn't point it out. He let you control the conversation, Travis, so he done fucked up. Like, my entire purpose in this was to tear Knock apart, because that's my job. Like, in this purpose right here, I wanted to teach Knock how to be a better fucking interlocutor, and what he did was he didn't pay attention to the shit you were saying. So, yeah, there are a lot of points where I could address your arguments, Travis. If you wanted to get into an actual discussion with me sometime, like maybe on this channel, like,
Yeah, we can make that happen.
we can have a discussion, but I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to him.
Yeah, this
So,
was
like,
about
I
me.
don't have to address your arguments. I have to address where he fucked up and didn't address your arguments. So
Yeah, this
don't
was
tell me that I have to address your arguments. That's not what the stream was about. The stream was about me showing Knock how he sucked at this debate, because he did.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely about me, and you know, you didn't win the debate, Travis, because you know you showed that physics point to God. You won the debate for the reasons that she just pointed out, and we pointed out throughout. I just didn't perform well. You threw me off, and I didn't respond, and I'm giving it to you. Can't wait for round two. It's going to be interesting. We'll see if I can bounce back for round two against Travis, and I would like to see that because this type of discussion is actually more up Ali's field. This is the kind of discussions that she's really good at and enjoys. So if you want to come on the channel and do it with her, I would love to have you on or set it up elsewhere. However, that would be interesting for me. Just don't forget my round two, because it's going to happen. But we're going to get out of here. I'm going to watch a movie with my daughter. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with us for so long. I'm sorry we didn't quite get through all of it. I don't think we missed too much. I wanted to go a little longer because my daughter can do her nighttime shot on her own, but she's just really needing some time with me, and I don't want to ignore her when she actually wants the time because I'm doing YouTube. So yeah, I'm going to enjoy this time with my daughter for the rest of the evening. You guys have a wonderful night. And I still got to figure out how to put my Patreon screen onto StreamYard. So Patreons, I love you. Thank you for still being here, for your support. You guys kick ass, and I'll see you soon.